Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Thursday, March 24th, 2022. Can I have a motion to call to order?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Can everybody rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I don't know what the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The fire exits are at the back and sides of the rooms, and there are exits out to the parking lots in the street, if you follow them accordingly, if necessary. Any and all correspondence that can be posted are posted on the tables out in the hallway. And we'll turn this over to Mr. Bartels now for recognition of students.
Thank you. I think I'll just turn it again right off to John Murphy, principal of Southside High School.
Thank you, Mr. Bartels and Mr. O'Shea. So, in a year that has been defined by exceptions, it's nice to continue celebrating the exceptionally good. Mm-hmm. And at this time of the year, we like to recognize and celebrate the valedictorian and the salutatorian for the class of 2022. So, the title for valedictorian and salutatorian are awarded to students with the highest grade point average in their graduating class. But the true gifts that these year's recipients provide have nothing to do with a calculated average, but it rests primarily on their strength of character, kindness, compassion, and humility. I hope that their accomplishments serve as a reminder to all of us that success in the truest sense of the word is more than just ticking off a box, but it's really accomplished by those who think of others first, shy away from public accolades, and thrive because of these attributes, not despite them. And both seniors have very different resumes or activity sheets, but their differences also serve as a reminder that success involves a discovery of your own passions and your own path and journey. First, we'd like to recognize this year's valedictorian, Nicole Gabriel. Nicole, you want to come up for a sec? As this is arguably the most uncomfortable Nicole will be feeling all year, because we're going to talk about her. She's described by teachers, coaches, and classmates alike as unassuming and kind. She's a 4-year member of varsity tennis, and this year she's the captain. She's the vice president of service and programming for the B'nai B'rith organization. She's the vice president of GEMS, which stands for Girls in Engineering, Science, and Math. She's a co-founder of Lab Leaders, a club designed to promote an interest in STEM areas for young girls, especially elementary school-aged girls. It comes as no surprise that her own independent research is extraordinary, most recently and continuing through the Garcia Research Scholars Program at Stony Brook University last summer and this year, where her research on thrombogenesis and viral infections as it relates to COVID-19 is ongoing and continuing. In her spare time, she's a student at the high school, and she's taken the full requirements for the IB diploma and exceeded, though, by also taking AB Calculus BC and commercial law. Her contributions to each and every class, the discussions and the activities are the true gifts, not the numbers. You gave us more than you received, Nicole. Congratulations. Have a seat, don't go far. Sorry, not off the hook yet. She's joined by this year's salutatorian. The words that occurred most frequently when describing Isabel Liu are creative and compassionate. As a freshman and a sophomore, she'd stay after school to tutor elementary school students in homework helpers. The pandemic didn't stop her, and she just switched it to remote tutoring for the next 2 years. Service is in her veins, and it should come as no surprise that at the end of 9th grade, when she visited China, she took it upon herself to spend that time in her family's hometown teaching English to the local school children. Her real passion, among other things, is literature. And she's an integral part of the Incandescent Review, a youth-led international literary magazine where she also mentors young writers. She's an award-winning writer and placed in the New York Times 7th Annual Student Editorial Contest, which was national and global, and earned first place for her poetry in the International Scribe Writing Contest. Her visual art is among some of the finest in the building, and that which appears in the library, and is a testament to our artistic depth and diversity. She's a member of the chamber and pit orchestra. While accomplishing the aforementioned, Isabel went to class once in a while where she's an IB diploma candidate, taking, again, the most rigorous coursework and exceeding that through BC Calculus and higher level physics, as well as her diploma requirements. Suffice it to say, for both of these candidates, this was the condensed version of their resume. I don't know what they do in their spare time, but they have been a gift and a treasure for this building. Isabel, would you like to come up? Congratulations to both of you. Photo op? Come on up.
Mr. Bartels is going to come down also. Don't get my picture.
While I have Isabel, at a previous board meeting, we also recognized 9 students who earned commended scholar status for the National Merit Scholars Program, which is the highest number that we've had in 15 years. 2 of those commended scholars were then chosen as National Merit semifinalists, which move on to the next round where they're evaluated through a series of criteria, most notably their scholarship, their academic record, their leadership, their service, and their extracurricular achievement. It is my pleasure to announce that our 2 semifinalists have also been recognized as National Merit finalists, which moves into the last round where they're eligible for a series of scholarships, both corporate and national. Isabel Liu is one of those finalists. Congratulations. And the second one also happens to be in the house, Mr. Benjamin Lamott. Come on up, Ben. Okay, so Ben's an IB diploma candidate too, but these students are a testament not just to scholarship, but to perseverance. And while I'm always glad and honored by accomplishments of students, what these kids had to go through over the last 3 years and still manage to maintain the standard that they did for themselves is nothing short of extraordinary. Ben's not only an IB diploma candidate, he's exceeded the requirements, taking higher level physics and chemistry and BC Calculus. He's an accomplished runner on the varsity cross country team. He's an officer on the Quiz Bowl team and is a member of Mathletes. Notice the dynamic towards team and we. Congratulations, Ben and Isabel.
as well come back down, Robert. Good evening, everybody. It is always my pleasure to introduce the student athletes and to honor them for their outstanding achievements during the 2021-22 winter season. Before I begin speaking about the individual accomplishments, I am always proud to announce that during the winter, both boys and girls basketball, boys and girls winter track, boys swimming and diving, girls gymnastics, and the boys wrestling teams were all recognized by the New York State Public High School Athletic Association as Winter 2022 Scholar Athlete Teams. Through a tremendous amount of hard work and dedication on and off season, each of the following individuals have earned all county honors or above. Due to a lot of last-minute activities and events, some of our athletes could not be here tonight, but I will tell you about them, and they were also honored at their team and county dinners. Our two-time all-county wrestler, Thomas Wagner, is currently competing in the Nationals in Virginia. This season, Thomas won 3 individual tournaments and qualified and competed at the state level. 3 of our gymnasts also could not be here tonight. Congratulations to Mia DeSalvo and Alex Griffo for earning all-county honors on vault, and to Kendall Pinsky for earning all-county honors on vault, balance beam, and floor exercise. In addition, you can clap, let's go. In addition, Nicholas Rhodes from the boys swim and dive team is competing at sectionals right now. Nick is a 3-time state qualifier, holds many school records, won county titles in the 100 butterfly and the 100 backstroke, and was named the most outstanding competitor of the county championships this year. At states, Nick finished 6th in the butterfly and 4th in the backstroke. From the girls' winter track team, Cameron Coletti was crowned county champion in the grueling 3,000-meter race and earned the privilege of representing Nassau County and Southside High School at the state championships. She was also the anchor leg in the second place 4x800-meter relay, which I will speak about in a few minutes. So now, let's give it applause. So now I would like to call up Robert Percolosi and Coach Jerry D'Angelo from the boys basketball team. Robert led the team in scoring, rebounds, steals, and minutes played this season, and ranked 2nd on the team in assists. Robert finished the season averaging 12 points and 11 rebounds per game and helped the team advance to the semifinals. His effort, skill, and tenacity as an individual earned him all-county recognition. Congratulations, Robert Percolosi.
Need a box, Carol.
Congratulations, Robert. Now I would like to call up Thomas McCarthy and Coach Ryan Clark from the boys swimming and diving team. Thomas, in his 5th year on the team, has had his most successful season ever. He broke his own record in the 6 and 11 dive events while qualifying for his first state championship. Thomas put countless hours of work into perfect dives with higher degrees of difficulty and competed in additional 11 dive invitationals to achieve a season-best final score of 487 points. At the state championship, he was one of only 39 divers to qualify to compete, and his first round score set him up to make it through 2 rounds of cuts and finish in 12th place overall in the state. Congratulations, Thomas. It is my pleasure to introduce Bridget Basil, Ava Duresti, and Kyla Murphy from the girls' basketball team. They're going to give a little wave so you know who we're talking about. Senior Bridget Basil has been acknowledged for 2 consecutive years as an all-county player. Coach Ferrick noted that she is one of the most improved players from freshman to senior year that has come through the program. Bridget averaged 15 points per game this season, playing in the positions of point and shooting guard, and will continue her athletic and academic careers at Manhattanville College. Congratulations, Bridget. Senior Ava Duresti transferred from Southside her junior year and has been a 2-year varsity player who makes everybody on the team better. Ava averaged over 9 points per game and was a combo player in guard and forward who earned honorable mention all-county for her effort. Congratulations, Ava. Sophomore Kyla Murphy averaged over 11 points per league game and was a versatile player who covered multiple positions both offensively and defensively and earned all-county honors for her effort and skill. Kyla has been a 2-year varsity player who will be looked upon as one of the main leaders during her junior and senior years. Congratulations, Bridget, Ava, and Kyla. Now I invite Claire Bohan, Lana Jewett, Kelsey Reinhold, and Catherine Shannon, along with coaches Webster and Gregerson, to the podium. Wave when you hear your name. Claire, Cameron, Lana, and Kelsey earned all-county and all-conference honors as part of Southside's 4x800 meter relay. This season, these girls came together to combine their individual talents to place second at the county championship. Each girl worked on their own skill and discipline and displayed the commitment and concentration to run a successful relay. Claire, who is a 3-sport athlete, also placed second in the county in the 3,000 meter run. Lana, who also earned all-conference honors by finishing 4th in the 3,000 meter race, missing all-county by a mere 1.5 seconds. And Kelsey also earned all-conference honors in the 1,000 meter run. Now we have Catherine Shannon, who has spent the last 4 years being a top high jumper in Nassau County. This highly technical event takes stupendous discipline and training, and Catherine worked year in and year out to own her skill, which resulted in being ranked 3rd and earning all county honors. Congratulations, Claire, Lana, Kelsey, and Catherine. And last, but certainly not least, I invite Katie Connors, Cassie Hawkins, Riley Levine, Erin McCarthy, Tara Sullivan, Peyton Waller, and coaches Harney and Erling from the gymnastics team to join me. They seem shy here, but they are not shy when they compete. Okay, first up, Katie Connors is being recognized as an all-county gymnast this season for her performances on floor exercise. Katie was a consistent member of the floor lineup where she scored a season high of 9.1. Katie also played a vital role on bars and beam for the Cyclones. Congratulations, Katie. Cassie Hawkins is being recognized as an all-county gymnast this season for her performances on vault. Cassie was a consistent member of the vault lineup where she scored a season high of 8.3. Cassie also played a vital role on bars and floors for the Cyclones. Congratulations, Cassie. Riley Levine is being recognized as an all-county gymnast this season for her performances on balance beam. In past seasons, Riley was known to successfully complete on floor. However, this season she focused her efforts on beam and scored a season high of 8.55. Congratulations, Riley. Erin McCarthy is being recognized as an all-county gymnast this season for her performances on floor exercise. In past seasons, Erin was known for her work on bars, but this season, in addition to competing on bars, she also competed on floor, where she scored a season high of 8.9. Congratulations, Erin. Tara Sullivan is being recognized as an all-county gymnast this season for her performance on balance beam. This is a direct result of the countless hours that Tara put in preparing for this event. When she competes, she always made it look so effortless to perform the difficult skills within her routine on a beam that is only 4 inches wide. Tara scored a season high of 8.7. Congratulations, Tara. Peyton Waller is being recognized as an all-county gymnast this season for her performances on vault, on even bars, balance beam, and floor exercise. Peyton's hard work, determination, and the ability to consistently earn high scores at each meet has made her one of the leaders on the team and known county-wide. Throughout the season, Peyton competed as the anchor on bars, beam, and floor, where she scored season highs of 8.4, 9.1, and 9.4, respectively. Congratulations, Peyton. And congratulations once again to Katie, Mia, Cassie, Riley, Erin, Tara, and Peyton. And this concludes my winter athletic presentation. Athletes, once again, congratulations for all of your outstanding achievements. Let's have one final round of applause for the athletes and the coaches. And I hope you all have a great evening.
At this time, I'd like to open the mic to any students in the room for any topic that they'd like to discuss. They all left with the awards. Mr. Bartels, I'd like to open the floor for you.
Thank you. I just have one update on COVID. This week, we've only had 6 students all week on quarantine, and there were only 4 on quarantine instruction today. So our numbers have continued to stay very low since we made the masks optional. Our schools continue to make strides in returning to normal, with school lunches eaten as full classes, and we're slowly getting back to a regular cafeteria setting. Each building is working on that with its own plan. Teachers are also beginning to return to typical classroom activities, such as reading together on a carpet and small group activities. So we also have a few cabinet updates, but first I'd like to announce that we do have a new doctor in the house, Dr. Sonia Hood. Dr. Hood recently defended her dissertation, and we're all very proud of the work she's been able to accomplish, both in school and here in Rockville Center. that, some cabinet updates, starting with Dr. Hood.
Let's see, am I on? Hello? Yes, I am. A few updates. Assessment time is upon us. The New York State 3 to 8 assessments are being administered next week, beginning Tuesday, March 29th. Math assessments will follow in April. Parent University is scheduled for elementary students on Tuesday, March 29th at 6:30 at Covert Elementary School. There will also be an open house at Southside Middle School for current middle school parents only on March 31st at 6:30. We are also planning a Regents review. A Regents review is being offered beginning next month in April. The review is being planned for in-person sessions. A notice is being sent out to parents from Community Ed, so be on the lookout for the notice. We anticipate high interest this year, so in the event that enrollment numbers exceed capacity, a lottery will be held. A reminder also that all RVC Education Foundation grants are due tomorrow, Friday, tomorrow. Final reminder of the RVC Foundation Gala on April 3rd. You can still purchase your tickets online, and there is a link, a direct link on the homepage of the district website.
Next, maybe Jeannie.
Good evening. Autism Awareness Week begins Monday, March 28th, and so we invite all staff, students, parents, and community members to demonstrate their support by wearing blue on Friday, April 1st. Our collaborative relationship with Northwell Behavioral Health continues to be an effective one in that it supports positive mental health through proactive interventions. For example, this month, the mental health team from Northwell, including Dr. Fior, provided our wonderful building principals, with training on stress first aid. Stress first aid is an approach used to help staff self-monitor their stress levels and provide strategies on self-care, as well as knowing when to reach out to a trusted colleague or pursue professional support. There will be follow-up training where we can turnkey this to our staff in the near future. As always, we're thankful to Northwell for their expertise and support. Universal Pre-K. We are very excited to be in the planning stages of our new Universal Pre-K program. As we all know, research shows that the early years in a child's development is a critical time to maximize growth and socialization, the acquisition of learning behaviors, as well as basic academic skills. We are actively working to coordinate our Universal Pre-K program so that more of our Rockville Center students have access to a pre-K experience. We're in the process of identifying possible locations at this time for this program and expect to have more information about the program and the registration process for you in the near future. Thank you.
Ms. Lip, can you briefly explain pre-K? Because it's confusing to some that they would think that they were going into their elementary school. So I've had some questions about it.
Sure. Different districts run it based on how much space they have, or if they send out what we call an RFP to local preschools in the area. So basically we're getting a certain amount of money to put towards tuition for a student. So it's not to reduce the cost. So let's say, if just for argument's sake, preschool tuition is $100 in a school. If we're given $40, it's not that we can give a parent $40 towards that $100. It's creating a program where that is what the cost is for the month, and that is the program offering. So we put an RFP out to see which schools might be interested in the amount that we were given per child for this program, and see who gets back to us. And so then once we know that, so if we send it out to 5 potential schools, let's say, and 2 of them get back to us, they'll let us know how much space they have. If we still need additional space, then we might consider other locations, or perhaps if we had room in our own schools for the program. So we have to really exhaust all of the options as far as what the potential locations are based on the tuition rate and the space, again, of the local programs and the space within the district. Once we know that, we'll put all the information together. We'll send it out to the community, and it would likely be a lottery process where you probably receive a Google form from me that you would fill it out, choose by preference. Let's say if there were 4 preferences, where you would like your child to attend, and then we would likely do a lottery where we would, it would be based on luck of the draw. The first 97, let's say, students that we pull out would get those seats. And then we would notify everyone, and there would be a waiting list. And so every Rockville Center citizen is available, is able to participate in the lottery.
And who came up with the 97?
Is it 97?
I thought it was 92.
93.
Okay,
93.
We'll throw.
That was determination by the state. We're not exactly sure of how they came up with their formula, but for our district, it was 93 students.
So the state's funding us for 93 students at a certain price at local pre-Ks.
Correct.
Right, thank you.
Ronnie?
We recently initiated the district's online registration process for private and parochial school students. This easy, paperless process allows the district to maintain accurate contact information and account for all students attending private, parochial, and charter schools. It will improve the processing of transportation applications and textbook requests for these students. Private and parochial school students are required to register for transportation for the next school year by April 1st. Currently, we have 250 students who have registered with this new process. Last year, we had 461 students register for transportation, so we currently have a little over half of the students who have registered online. We plan to reach out to the parents again next week to remind them of the deadline, and we're also asking that private and parochial schools notify parents of Rockville Center students who attend their schools to register online with the district. Regarding school lunch, on March 11th, President Biden signed a $1.5 trillion spending bill, which did not include funding for the Universal Free Lunch Program for the 22-23 school year. Since March 2020, the district has been able to serve meals to all students at no cost, but free lunches for all students will end June 30th of this year. As a result, we encourage families who think that they may qualify to complete the application, which is online at rvcschools.org, this year to ensure the continuation of benefits into the next school year. Next year, we also will be asking them to complete the application in order to continue in the program for 22-23. And again, there is an online application that can be easily utilized at rvcschools.org. This is the most efficient way to do this. And that's really it.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Anyone have any questions? I'd just like to, we've had some emails concerning lunch at the elementaries and the differences. Can we just explain what's happening, if changes will be made, if, or any of those details with the public?
Well, I think each of the buildings is working with them a little differently. Wilson does not eat in the cafeteria, doesn't have a cafeteria. They utilize their gym all day, so they can't use that. So they're really back to the extent that they can be, which is eating as full classes in the classroom. All of the other buildings at the elementaries are eating as full classes in the classrooms, and I think each individually is looking to get back to full, typical cafeteria seating in gyms or auditoriums at their own pace. Some have some logistical issues on getting back there, so each one is doing it individually.
Okay, so our hope is to get back to the routine pre-COVID at some point in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else? Right. And Mr. Martell's item for discussion, we are going into a budget discussion.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to thank all the principals and directors who are here to assist us in answering questions on the budget or programs for next year. What I'd like to do is kind of go through, we've had a few presentations on the budget. I wanted to kind of summarize the changes that we're going to see in the different schools for next year, and then kind of open it up for questions. So first, we continue to work on the district budget, and we've had several notices of retirements for this upcoming school year. So we've been able to make some reductions in some of our salary lines to bring the budget down to the 3.99%, which now balances with our revenue picture for next year. If you recall, our original budget that we put out was up around 4.25%, so we needed to get that back down. We did have retirements, which allowed us to make some reductions in some of those salary budget lines to get us down to that figure, which balances the budget. We do struggle each year on how to best present the budget, because we know it can be a very confusing document. We do have our line-by-line budget available on the district website, and we have it at our budget work sessions. We used to go through it line by line in the past, but that had become a really cumbersome task, and people did not really understand the big picture. So we've tried to transition to try to highlight, to try to hit the highlights, the bigger budget impacts, and programmatic changes. So as I said tonight, I want to try to summarize some of those key changes for next year. In the elementary schools, first, we're really implementing an integrated co-teaching program for the provision of special ed services in all of our buildings and at all of our grade levels. This is a big step, and we think a greater assistance to our special education population. We're also adding both a math support teacher and a reading teacher at the elementary level to assist in providing academic support. The math support teacher will allow us to have a dedicated elementary math teacher in each elementary school instead of having to split someone between two buildings. The reading teacher will also allow a full-time person in each building instead of splits and give more flexibility to adjust the size of groups and the interventions given. We're also adding a floating security guard at the elementary level to fill in for any absences in buildings so that we don't need to cover that position with an aide or secretarial staff, as we have had to do on a number of occasions this year. So this will give us a security personnel to fill in that role as we have absences at the elementary level. In the middle school, we will be adding a math support teacher to work with grades 6 to 8 to maximize their effectiveness and ensure common goals and planning within and across grade levels. In addition to this, I know there have been questions on all students taking algebra in the 8th grade. This program has been in place for many years now, and as an interim superintendent and with little comparative data due to COVID over the past 2 years, I'm hesitant to recommend any major change to this curriculum without at least a full year's analysis. That being said, we do plan to restructure our 8th grade algebra courses so that there is a second teacher in every 8th grade math classroom so that they can team teach and address concept issues immediately for any students in the class who are struggling. We expect this to greatly reduce the need for the math strategy support classes and open up other experiences for those who may have some struggles with algebra. We do not anticipate any additional staffing for this new endeavor. With the implementation of the Regents exams this spring, we will monitor this data and how students are performing over the next year to evaluate whether this model is achieving better results or if a different course of action needs to be taken in the future. There have also been some calls to review the need for all students to take earth science in 8th grade. We will continue to review this curriculum over the next year as well for possible changes, but you need to know that the state has plans to change the 8th grade curriculum for the following school year. So there really would not make any sense for us to make a change for next year, buy additional resources, train teachers for a 1-year course implementation. The last piece for the middle school would be the reallocation of a social worker from the high school to the middle school. An extra social worker was added this year to the high school with some of the COVID funding, but we will be adding that to the regular budget and moving that position to more evenly distribute these services between the secondary buildings. At the high school, We will be adding an introductory foreign language course, Italian, for those students who may need a foreign language credit or who may want to start another language after Spanish. We will continue to offer American Sign Language, but that does not earn a foreign language credit. That would only earn an elective credit, but that offering will still be available. This will not need any additional staffing. We do have an increase of the equivalent of 1 teacher position for business and coding electives, and we're looking for an individual with computer science background, as there has been a great increase in the interest for DECA and for computer technology offerings. Our after-school support at all levels, which has been funded by COVID relief funds this year, will also continue next year at all levels. For our athletic program, we'll be adding a varsity girls golf team and a varsity boys volleyball team for next year. We will also be adding an assistant coach for all teams who do not currently have a paid assistant. The one last thing I need to talk about that we really haven't gotten into is a contingency budget. So what happens if the budget is not approved by the voters? The board will have a second chance to put up the same or a revised budget for another vote. But if no budget is passed, the district would then have to go on to a contingency budget, which means that the tax levy cannot increase over what it was this year. That means we would have to cut $2.1 million from this budget. Certain items would have to be excluded, such as non-emergency capital projects, new equipment, and community use of buildings and grounds where there is an identifiable expense. So we would probably drop our transfer to capital line by $1.5 million, leaving only a relatively small amount for contingency capital emergencies. New upgrade requests for facilities such as playground ceiling replacements, new lighting, upgrading bathrooms, and paving work could not be done. We would still have another $600,000 to cut, which would be for probably the new athletic teams, assistant coaches, and then into some of the new equipment requests around the district. So I don't think we could really put those new pieces into place if we have to go to a contingent budget. Our final time to make any budget changes will be at the preliminary budget hearing on April 12th. We will finalize our list for capital project requests at that time as well. We did go through that list of capital projects at the last budget presentation, and that is available on the district website for anybody that needs to take a look at that. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions from the board.
Give me board questions. We can wait. We're also going to open the floor up to visitors at this point just on the budget, but we'll see if the board has any questions first or comments.
I don't have any questions per se, but I do have some comments. I would just like to say that I'm disappointed that the only allocation we're making at the middle level is adding a team teacher to grade 8. While that's wonderful and I'm sure will be quite helpful to the students in the class, I think a lot of the concern about math and earth science at the middle level doesn't start at 8th grade, it starts at 6th grade. When we talk about mathematics, math is built on a foundation. Math concepts don't exist in silos. And if you don't have a strong foundation, you can't build. So while we're offering the support in 8th grade, once we have compacted 3 years into 2, my concern is, what are these students' foundation? What are we building on? Are they ready for the rigor of the class? Are they cognitively ready for the abstract concepts that are delivered in this class? And the same is true for earth science. I think we do a real disservice to many of our students by putting them all into the same box. They are not the same, and they are not ready. Not all of them are. I worry specifically about our special education children. Where is the pathway for them? We have pathways at the elementary level, we have pathways at the high school, and there is nothing for them at the middle level. They are put into the same box as everyone else, and yes, we offer supports, but supports are great. It's like our house. If the wall is falling down, I can put a beam up to hold the house. There's my support. But what happens when the next wall falls and the next wall falls, and they're falling because the foundation is broken? The house needs to be torn down. I'm just disappointed. I mean, as an educator, I think our primary duty is to be reflective, to be sure that we are doing what's best for kids. Looking at our data, I don't know that our data shows that what is doing is what's best for kids. As a result, I do think we need to do a lot of collection of data. I'm wondering if anyone can tell me, I guess I do have some questions. When is the last time that we did a full K through 12 math review?
Janine?
So I could tell you, K through 5, our curriculum is looked at every single summer. Our math AIS teachers work every summer, and they look at the timeline, they go over the standards, they look at the common assessments. Then we have articulation meetings. They meet with the 6th grade. And the 6th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th recently did a curriculum review because they had an MYP recertification. And I am not sure where we are with the high school, but the next generation standards are coming toward them. So there was a shift in New York State standards for ELA, math, and science. They all kind of happened around the same time. So there is going to be a change in algebra, I want to say 2026, but I'm going to confirm that. So it is constantly being looked at.
So these reviews are completed cyclically, like every 5 years we have a review process that we could see?
On the elementary, I don't have, on the elementary level, we have timelines that they do every year based on school calendar, based on the state assessments, because according to New York State, they give you pre and post topics for the state assessment. So they pretty much tell you what are things that could happen pre and post assessment. And then, so they're looked at every year based on like clockwork, you know, and the parent handbooks are updated, and we have that going because the calendar changes and the state assessment dates change.
And the data that's collected from NWA is used to inform change in that curriculum.
Absolutely, and also to our assessments as well. We have common assessments at the math level, and we look at that too. In fact, they're collected. And we also, you know, then meet with the teachers, and they look for patterns. They look on how students answered questions. And I will tell you, I know, you know, I understand, you know, and I'm a parent too. I get it. But we met with the teachers. You know, Ms. McGinn, myself, Dr. Hood, Mr. Bartels came over, and at the middle school, and we sat with them. And it's very powerful when you're in a room with them, and we really talk about the needs and what they're seeing. And they're seeing things like stamina more than content. They're seeing things about staying on task. And they're trying to work with the kids on those type of things. Our 8th graders now, they're the ones, these are the kids that, you know, had the hybrid and in 6th grade had to go out. So our incoming, they've been in school. They've had the benefit of being in school. So, you know, I appreciate, you know, Mr. Bartels, and again, like, I wish we had data that was reflective of an in-person school year, you know, no quarantines, no remote instruction. We had some kids who were on remote instruction and come back. We've had many new students to the district. So we're looking forward to that. And again, we really look at it as, you know, meeting the kids where they are and getting them to where they're supposed to be. And for science, just, you know, because I know you had questions with science as well, 6th grade science is 6th grade science, 7th grade science is 7th grade science. 8th grade, if we were to do 8th grade science, and they're all changing, the next gen, it's the next gen science standards, which are now the New York State learning standards. They didn't call those next gen, they called ELA math, just to make yourselves, you know, crazy. They're now at the middle level. So next year is the last year that the kids will be at the 1996 standards that they'll be using. So it truly makes no sense to bring the course, like versus for 8th grade standards, based, you know, to write a curriculum, purchase materials, get materials for assessment for 1 year, because they're going into 8th grade They're changing the standards to go for an 8th grade course the following year. And then the Earth Science Regents is due to change. So it would be great to look at when that's coming, like how is that changing? Will it be more difficult? What are the topics of study? So it would be better time to evaluate after the rollout of that coursework. Does that make sense? So like that's where we're coming from.
I mean, it makes sense to an extent, but when do our kids learn the topics that are published online for the 8th grade science curriculum? Because there is a curriculum, it's online, we could look at it.
Absolutely, and those standards and the topics have changed. I mean, and they're changing. It's the elementary.
I want to know, like, you're telling me in 6th grade, kids learn 6th grade science. In 7th grade, they learn 7th grade science. In 8th grade, they take earth science. Where did the 8th grade curriculum go?
The 8th grade curriculum is then, like, it's spread out. I'd have to look at what the topics are.
But so then,
Right.
so you're compacting curriculum. So they're not learning the 6th grade
We're not
course.
No.
You have to be, or else then our children are missing a year of science.
A lot of our topics are repetitive, like many things. Like in social studies, we do American history in elementary school.
They're completely different.
Now they are. Well, if you look at the new standards,
I'm a social studies teacher. I know what social studies is. I just don't understand where the content is going. If you're telling me in science it's a grade level course, then I need to know where the 8th grade topics are taught. I teach 7th grade. I work with a teacher who teaches accelerated science.
Mm-hmm.
We compact grades 7 and 8 into one. There are 8th grade topics
do
that
they
she
take
teaches.
the 8th grade test?
They all take the 8th grade assessment.
Our students do not.
And they take algebra.
Are you talking about science or math?
I'm talking about science.
Okay.
But math
In
as well, our
science-
students all take
so
it.
our science, we don't take the 8th grade assessment, so we're not teaching our students.
So when
that.
do they learn those skills?
I will do an analysis for you of where those skills are taught throughout. I don't know if.
I want to be sure that our students, our children are learning what they're supposed to be learning as mandated by New York State so that they have the foundational skills that they need moving forward.
I do
understand that science is taught in silos. You don't necessarily need to have one before the other. Like we could teach living environment in 8th grade instead of earth science, which
Absolutely.
makes a lot more sense cognitively for kids. But if a child is supposed to be learning specific content, it needs to be taught, which means we must be compacting curriculum in grade 6 and 7 to prepare them for
I will
grade
get
8.
an analysis for you, but also I think the kids are doing well based on our 93% graduation rate with advanced designation, and we have Mr. Moss had shared amazing data about how 30%, we have a college acceptance rate that's 30% above national average. So they are getting what they need, but I will get you an analysis of topics. If you want the 1996, I could do that, or we can go forward and move forward and look at the next gen standards.
I think it would be great to see like a scope and sequence of what's taught in grade 6 and 7, because I can find the standards myself, but just to see what's going on would be great. I was also wondering, do we know how many students that are currently in math support in grades 6 through 12?
I don't have that number with me right now.
I'd be interested to know that. And then for these support classes, do we have entrance criteria and exit criteria for getting into these courses?
Usually it's teacher recommendation. Sometimes parents ask. I don't know if there's is it below an 80, Ms. McGinn?
85 is typically what we say is the cutoff as people entering into the class. But it is done with teacher recommendation, parent recommendation, and discussion with the students as they're getting older as well.
And then with regards to exit criteria, I would like to know what percentage of kids who start support in grade 6 have graduated from support by grade 8, and then into the high school as well. So as if I'm a support student in grade 6, what is my chance of graduating from that, or is this something that I'm probably going to be utilizing throughout my middle and high school career to help me get through those courses? I also would like to know, for support, what is the purpose of a support class? Do we use it to prime students, or are we using it for pre-teaching and reteaching? And I have a couple of other requests. I'm sorry, my list is kind of long. With regards to in-class support, do we have a district MTSS plan? And if so, where could I find that?
As part of RTI, as part of the RTI plan?
Yeah, but I'm more so MTS. I mean, have we transferred to MTSS, or are we still RTI?
I believe we're still RTI. Response to intervention.
Sorry, response to intervention, which is now known as a multi-tiered support system. It's basically how we provide supports for students in class before having to recommend them out to a support class or reading class. So it's basically what can the classroom teacher do to help a student who's showing struggle within the confines of their classroom. And there's usually many tiers of, tier 1 support, tier 2 support would be out, but just strategies that teachers can use to help the struggling student. So I was just wondering if we've updated from RTI to MTSS, and if so, where I could find those.
No, we have not. We still have an AIS plan with an RTI model. It was not mandated through the state yet, but we can definitely, with Ms. Love here, it has been, a real pleasure to work with and get knowledge from, somebody from another district as well to bring insights in. I think the ICT model is going to bring great things with our district and wonderful professional development. We're looking to work with Ms. Love also on trying to find training for our teachers for the team teaching that we'll be doing in 8th grade. And we're a work in progress, and I think that we've done a lot of really good things in this district, and I'm very proud of our administrators and our teachers here, and we really work very collaboratively. So any decisions that we make, I just want you to know it's not, us sitting in a room saying this is, what we think. It's based on meetings with our principals, our teachers, feedback that they're getting, observations in classrooms, and what we notice. So we really are trying to be thoughtful and very careful about what we're implementing.
Have we surveyed our students, alumni, parents on their experience with these programs?
I know that the high school surveys graduates, and they've gotten wonderful feedback, and the students say that they're very prepared, but we can do something in the future.
Do we also have any data on our college retention rates from 2015 through 2020? I hear students feel that they're well prepared, but I'd be interested to know how many are finishing four-year college in 4 years.
I'll get that for you. I do think there's a report on our data warehouse that we can get and we could look at. I have no problem. We could definitely do that.
Okay, and my last request, I'd also like to know the number of students that we currently have in grades 3, 4, and 5 who are enrolled in Math AIS.
I'll have to get that for you. I'll get all that for you.
And I would like that survey from students, from alumni, from parents, and from our staff, our TAs, our aides, our administrators, on what their experience with Accelerated for All is. As I have said multiple times, I understand the district's history, and I understand the philosophy under that history, but I'm really just unsure whether or not our history should be informing our present and our future. I think we need to take a real hard look at our data, at our numbers, what our kids are saying primarily, first and foremost, and what the experience has been to guide us moving forward. And I do agree that we should not make any major change without that data, without being 100% informed about what we are doing, because it is a big shift. But my frustration really lies, and I feel like there's just like a heels in, we are not doing this. And it's just upsetting to me. It's very upsetting that we've been trying to have this conversation for months, and now it's the end of March. And while there is change that we're having team teachers, I really still feel that we're square one. So I just would like to make a motion that we have these surveys done, written up, and completed by mid-May, so that we can start with our data moving forward to really take a good hard look at what's going on in this district with primarily math, but science as well, and potentially our co-seated social studies and English classes, these courses that we've been talking about for quite some time.
I would second that motion.
I'd just like to say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I think we have spent an awful lot of time looking at this, trying to evaluate what we have been doing in the past. We have looked and we are making changes for next year. It may not be exactly what you're looking for, but as I started out by saying, I'm very hesitant to make that major jump or change at this point as an interim, especially without looking at a lot of data to make sure we know what we're doing before we change a program that really has been working very well. Some students may be struggling, but we are working with all of those students continually, and we believe this change, which was discussed with many administrators and many teachers with plenty of experience, will go a long way to assist in doing that and to help our students.
Is there
I also mentioned that we would continue to look at the data, and if things need to change over the next year and we need to continue to make adjustments, that we would do that.
And I appreciate that. Is there any way that we could also see the data that's showing that this model is continuing to work? Because I'd be interested in that as well. Like, what evidence do we have that proves that continuing, I mean, with everything, as we look at it, what is the data that we have that proves that this model is effective and should stay in place, like looking at both ends of the spectrum? I would be interested to see that as well.
My understanding of Erica is just asking for data. She's just asking that we start working on collecting data so we can see if we're going in the right direction or we need to make change. She didn't ask for any change or dramatic change. She definitely expressed an opinion, but I think asking for the data, which unfortunately COVID has changed the way our students deal with school and handle school, but we really are in a lack of the data of our students' progression over the past few years. We started even co-seating in the high school, I don't know how many years ago, and we've still not received the data that most everybody involved in the change asked for, and there are circumstances around not being able to collect data, but that still doesn't excuse the district for not getting whatever data they can to see if it's effective or not. Even the PTAs were very, very specific or very much in favor of the data. Read the data before we continue this forever. So now we're in years ahead without really any knowledge of how it's going. And yes, we have our graduation rates as good, but how are our students impacted? How do they struggle? How do they get through their days? And does it fall off when they leave here and we need more data, and that's all that I believe Erica's asking for. Is that Erica?
That's all I'm asking
So
for.
if we can start the process for data, and we know that data will take a while to gather, and then we get an opportunity to look at the data in the near future and make any adjustments that need to be done, I think that would be very important. I would second Erica's motion to gather data and start this process, and let's see where we are and where we can go to a better place.
Sorry, a point of clarification. Mrs. Messier, I think, made a motion to have a survey distributed and collected by mid-May. Wasn't that the motion that you made?
Yes, I'd like to start the data
we're
collection
asking for
process.
Well,
and-
that's part, okay, all right, so we have to be,
I guess on top of the other points of data that I asked for, I would like a survey to be created and send separate surveys for students, alumni, parents, and then for staff, including teachers, TAs, aides, and administrators. I think that when you talk about making change, there is a process and there is a procedure, and I do respect that. I respect what needs to happen for change to happen effectively and for it to be done right. And to say that, we need to do this change overnight would not be in the best interest of children. Our survey will help to inform any decision that may or may not happen in the future. But I would like those surveys done so that we have the data, so that as we move into the new school year, that we can start this analysis immediately, so that if change is made, that it can be made sooner rather than later. We need to be looking at what we're doing. So that's what I'm asking for.
I am happy to do it. I'm happy to work with the board. I think that that's the only way that would serve our students and our parents. So I'm absolutely happy to. Things do take time, so just so you know, Ms. Hood and I, we're upon testing and the end of the year activities and parent use and at foundation meetings and things like that, but we'll work with you. I'll share drafts with you, and I think we can do wonderful things together with looking at data, But some things do take time, and again, we really just want to have a thoughtful approach and work with our team in going forward.
Thank you.
And I just think that we want that same thing. We want to look at data. If you look at the past 2 years, what we have gone through in the midst of COVID, we have not had real data to work with. So I think moving forward, we want to take time out to have a year of some normalcy where we can see where we currently are. I think I want to just make sure that we understand that we work collaboratively together. We do not work in silos. We speak with the administrators. We're in the classrooms with the teachers, so we see what's taking place and what is going on. In terms of review of curriculum on the secondary level, administrators review curricula departmentally. The review process is collaboratively. We are not working in silos. We collaborate as administrators at RVC. The review process, like I mentioned, is collaborative. It incorporates input, discussions, and feedback from a cross-section of administrators, academic facilitators, IB coordinators, and instructional staff. On the district level, Dr. Sampino and I review curriculum as it is developed, and enhancements or modifications are made as informed by data or mandated by New York State standards. Externally, as a part of the IB program, every 5 years, assessors provide a comprehensive review that supports the validity and reliability of programming and curricula, inclusive of the units of inquiry and criterion-based assessments. So there are multiple points of data review and assessment and evaluation of our programs. And as Dr. Sampino mentioned, we are more than happy to share our interest and motivation and goal is to support student achievement and positive student outcomes. So if we can collaborate all together as a board and as a district with administrators, then that really sets a powerful force in motion so that we can all get what we want, and that is student achievement, positive outcomes, like I mentioned, for all the students.
Thank you, Dr. Hood. I think it's very clear to me that the collaboration has been put in, the effort has been put in. Mr. Bartel's recommendations tonight makes perfect sense to me with the timeline where we are, and getting the Regents results back from this first group of students that will be taking the Regents this year will be an important data point to consider in conjunction with everything that you mentioned.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, I feel that we're at such a crossroads right now for so many reasons. So we're coming out of a pandemic. I would argue that it's not that we have no data, we just don't have steady data over the certain amount of years, but it's not that we're working with no data. We have a lot of data on our student achievement. We have alternate assessments to state assessments in the NWEA. We have many measures that our teachers and principals and administrators have put into play. Dr. Sampino and Dr. Hood evaluating and constantly in rooms and with teachers and collaboration. We're not in a place of no data. I just want to not let that hang, okay? But I really believe that a full review and a longitudinal study is not just about surveys. It's just a multi-step process, and I'm all in favor of it, by the way. But one elephant in the room that we're not addressing is that we are hiring a superintendent. There are many methods and ways to pursue curricular paths, and I feel like we're kind of keeping somebody key out of the conversation, and so I just would like to caution that, and also support Mr. Bartels in his thinking and saying that we will do this deep dive, we will take a look at this longitudinal data, and we will make appropriate changes where they're needed, if they're needed, and in the meantime, he's hearing concerns for people that are looking for supports, putting them into place. I heard math support at the elementary school, so if we're talking about foundation, I heard that, I wrote that down. I heard math support 6 to 8, I wrote that down. So it's not as if we're only just kind of backfilling 8th grade math help because we're in such dire straits by 8th grade that we've got to do something. I see support being built from the bottom up. So that to me looks like a continuous plan of thinking. So one of the other things, just a point of clarity, we've had so many parents, especially special ed parents, over the years, kind of feel for their children that they couldn't take electives because they were in many support classes. So if we're going to add a team teacher into 8th grade, I'm kind of imagining that that opens up opportunities for students not to have to take strat math or some sort of special math class, and maybe can pursue the arts and the music and the food science and the technology and the amazing middle school electives that exist. So I see a positive there. I know that we still have after school programs in place. We still have early morning extra help that's available, and from our principals told us is underutilized. So when we put it all together, I'm proud of the collaboration among our administrators to say, hey, we can always add, enhance, be better, but we believe in what we're doing, and I think that that's a really important piece, and I believe in what we're doing too. I truly do. I really just want us to do things thoughtfully and effectively with data, with science, and not because we feel we might be shortchanging our children. Let's really take a look at our children, because I think that our children are phenomenal, our students are amazing. That's my middle school portion. I really have to go back, and I really want to keep things positive. The ICT model, thank you so much, Mrs. Love. Been well looked for and needed in the elementary buildings. I'm so proud to say that we're going to be adding that. What I hope for, and I guess it's a question for Mr. Bartels and Ms. Lalo, that I hope that budget-wise it's a sustainable program, that regardless of COVID funding and additional budget that we've been given, that we commit to this program and we make sure that it's sustainable. We have other staff that had been traditionally helping in our special ed rooms. I hope we can utilize them. I hope we can keep our staff and just keep adding, but not necessarily taking staff out. So for me, it's like a request of hoping that this program can be sustainable for many, many years. And you know, if I'm saying the wrong thing, and not that it's all based on COVID's budget, but I hope that whatever we're being granted can last us and keep this going and really invest in this program.
Yeah, this is really nothing to do with COVID funding. This is all funded within the budget. Very comfortable that this will be able to continue going forward with the additional state aids that we're getting for next year, and also that we're being promised for future years, which we haven't even tapped into yet. So I feel very strongly that this commitment can continue and hopefully increase in the future.
I appreciate that, and I really do appreciate that addition. I think it's really, like I said, just really welcomed and needed. So I love the addition of our Italian foreign language. That excites me. I love the addition of our business and coding. We're doing with our budget what we should be doing, which is to focus on more ways to get our kids educated, the whole child. We talk about that. So I'm really proud of the additions. I do also appreciate the extra teams that we're adding, the coaches. We talked about that at previous meetings. I think truly, if we've made a wish list of things over the last 6 or 8 months since the school year started, this budget really truly encompasses something I feel we can all be proud of. So I appreciate everybody's work on it, and thank you very much.
I'll add, and I know Christine, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that.
I don't know if your mic's on.
What about you?
It's green. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
if you talk closer to it, you can.
I understand this collaboration. I appreciate what everyone's done. I've been here a long time, maybe not on this dais, but in this district. And in 2018, with the years preceding 2018, there was a movement in our community to take a hard look at what was going on in terms of our acceleration for all, and some of the difficulties that parents and students, both gen ed and special ed, had said was going on with the way things were going. And we had PTA forums, and we did surveys, and we did this work in 2018. And the result of that work was that there needed to be change. And there were advocates for change, some of whom are sitting in this room, who worked very hard to bring to the attention of the board in 2018 that changes needed to be made for our students. And while there was a vision, and we had a visionary superintendent, and he retired. His vision, while forward-thinking 34 years ago, is not the vision that we have now. And we've been trying to do something about the fact that accelerating everyone in the wake of what we know now is special education, and how many years it's taken to expand the definition of all of the challenges that our children face. It is not the definition of special ed from 30 years ago. We have so many more things. We have so many more things to look at, from spectrum disorders to ADHD to anxiety, and we know our mental health and everything we've been dealing with recently. All of those things have to do with how our children access their education. And while it may have been the view in the past that you had to look at a child who may have had a physical disability, and in the past people would have a prejudice and say someone with a physical disability may also be mentally challenged, and terrible things happened in the education system. I think we've reached a point here where the exact opposite is happening, but it's still harmful. We have children that, to look at, you may not know all the struggles that they have, but they now have these struggles, and they're being forced into a curriculum that is not appropriate. We do not have a grade-appropriate curriculum at the middle school. This has been going on since 2018, and we did studies and we did surveys, and we made progress, and we put pathways in at the high school, and we had a co-seated model at the high school. And yes, the data is not available because COVID happened. But back then, if you watch the meeting from December 5th of 2018, some of the same advocates that are sitting in this room were at that podium speaking to people who were sitting on this dais and begging that the conversation wouldn't end there, and that we would continue to move forward with what we knew to be right, that there needed to be alterations, especially at the middle school, because that's what was left open. I am so happy that we have Jeannie Love and what we have done with the ICT model in the grammar school. And I do know that going forward, that model is going to do such good for the kids that are moving from the grammar school, to give them the foundation that Ms. Messier referred to when she said the walls are crumbling because the foundation is wrong. That model will make changes for the future. We still have a body of children that have now been impacted by COVID learning loss, and we're still treating them as if we don't know what we knew in 2018, and the pandemic and learning slide has not happened. The middle school needs change, and I get that it needs to be thoughtful, and I get that we're in a position where we are, where we have Mr. Bartels, who I appreciate very much, as an interim superintendent, and we find ourselves where we are now. That doesn't help the kids. It doesn't help the kids who are coming into the middle school. It doesn't help the kids that are going from the middle school to the high school that have been dealing with these issues. Data or no data, if you ask the moms and dads that are paying for tutors and doing things on their own, and you attend SET meetings and you attend PTA meetings, as I have for the past 12 years, and you listen to families, data isn't the only thing that should be informing what we're doing now. We need to do better, and we can't wait 3 years to do it. It needs to be done now.
COVID slide has affected every kid in our district. There's no denying. COVID slide has affected every student in our district. But we still have data, or we wouldn't be able to graduate our kids or move our kids forward. So there is data. As affected as it may be by COVID, it's still something we are moving forward with. We need to use that data, understand what our parents' needs and wishes are, and our kids' wishes are, and see if we need to, see if it, or what changes we need to make it better for those kids. We have continually heard that we don't have data because of COVID. We have to have that data, or else we wouldn't. We're testing our kids, we're graduating our kids, and you can't say we don't have data if we are doing all the things we're doing. And I don't think anybody on this board is asking for a radical change in a program. They're looking for a survey to start soon, not later, because we understand that it will take us time to formulate the questions and gather the answers and put it in. That's all that's being asked, and I don't see how that could hurt anything, anytime. No matter what the circumstance is, it's still today. We can't wait a year and maybe something will happen then and we're going to wait another year. We just can't wait for the kids that are in the system now. It's not benefiting our kids moving through the system now. We're trying to correct who's coming up. We're doing, we're trying different things in the high school, but we're not helping that middle of the road. And it's nobody's fault, because that's the way we've always done things. We just need to start thinking about if we need changes. And I really hope that we can do a survey, do it well, do it quick, and understand if we need to make any changes moving forward.
We can definitely work on that and get that in place.
Okay, and that's all. I know that everybody has a strong opinion one way or another, but it's as simple as let's look at what we have and try and understand it and see if it's working. It's my opinion. I'm speaking just for myself, but I just hope we can gather the information to see what we have to do. I hope everybody would be on board with that. Okay, thanks, Dr. Sampino. Thanks, Dr.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Bartels. All right, we will open the mic up just for budget questions. I guess budget questions are involved quite a bit now. So if anybody would like to come up and speak about budget, please state your name and address. And as long as we can, we're going to try and keep to a 3-minute limit. And we are going to try and answer your questions if possible, if you pose the questions to the board.
Sure, great.
Thank you.
Mike Muscarella, 5 Hawk Lane. Just a point of clarification. You mentioned about the budget and the assistant coaches. You're going to give every team an assistant coach that doesn't have an assistant coach?
Correct. Every team right now that does not have an assistant coach, we will attempt to get an assistant coach for every one of those teams for next year.
Okay. What was the thought process behind that?
Thought process was we've been getting numerous requests for additional support in our coaching staff. We have not made many changes at all, really, since I had been here for 20 years or so, adding additional coaches. So we felt with this budget we had a chance to do that. So that's why we decided to try to put them in for this year, for next year.
Okay. The reason I ask, was there any thought process behind span of control or safety of the kids in certain sports as opposed to others? For instance, my sons played middle school football, and there were 58 kids on the team, and I believe there was 2 coaches. So are you going to give an assistant coach to a team that may have, 5 players on it, as opposed to the middle school team that had 58 players?
Well, each team is obviously unique, and they have different issues and safety issues within each team. So there have been different requests from teams with not a lot of athletes to teams with a lot of athletes, and those additional teams that have quite a few athletes, as football does, already has additional assistants. So we really hadn't looked at adding any to those teams that already have multiple assistants.
Mr. Bartels, we're talking about adding coaches to varsity level. Are
To
you
all
addressing
levels.
a middle
No.
school? Are we talking middle
all
school?
levels.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, all levels. And again, so there was no concern about span of control or safety. It was just arbitrarily across the board.
It wasn't arbitrary. I mean, we've had requests from virtually all teams for various reasons. Some due to numbers, some due to individual safety within those teams themselves. Carol, you have had anything?
You basically covered it. We are taking into consideration safety, numbers, and the requirement of the sports.
Okay, so the middle school team that had 58 football players
Has 2 coaches currently,
has
yes.
2 coaches.
Yes.
And you're going to give an assistant coach to maybe a team that has 5 players or athletes on it.
So once the money is, if it is approved for this budget, then we're going to assess and put in the appropriate coaches.
Okay, so Okay, just to be clear, there was no discussion about span and control or safety before that decision was made?
It was about those for multiple teams, and we felt that certain teams had additional coaches already, and that certain other teams needed additional assistance to help with that.
So you looked at the middle school football team of 58 players and
Yeah.
decided,
We looked at them, we said they already have an additional coach, so we weren't going to add another coach to that team before we would add assistance to other teams.
so you didn't take into consideration span and control or safety?
It's safety of all the teams.
Right, but sports, obviously there's some teams that have, like I said, 58, other teams have 5. Football, I would think, it's a pretty physical sport.
Which
So-
is why they already have the additional coaches.
Right, so hypothetically, I don't know, maybe the tennis team has 5, so you're going to give 2 coaches for 5 athletes as opposed to a 3rd coach or a 4th coach for a football team that has 58 athletes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Danielle Ray, 70 Forestdale Road. I really want to talk about some of the additions you guys are adding. I love the fact that you're adding Intro to Italian as an offering at the high school. I think that's a really great option. What I was really disappointed at is the focus on all of the extra support you're giving at the elementary and middle school, and I heard nothing for the high school students. Support classes for the 9th graders are at maximum capacity. The students are struggling because that grade hasn't had a full year of school since 6th grade. We rushed them for curriculum, as Erica pointed out, and I want to thank you because this has been a crow for me for years, and I've scrubbed the data for years. We have issues that need to be addressed. You don't hide behind COVID, no data. There's plenty of data, and it's all out there for you to see. I've been scrubbing it for years. We don't do well. It's not appropriate for everybody. And these poor 9th graders, they got the shaft, guys. It's great that you're going to add an extra teacher to 8th grade next year. Those kids have already had then almost 2 years of real learning. These 9th graders, you said directly, somebody here said it's all spirals. Well, what are you doing? They didn't get a good foundation for pre-algebra in 7th grade. Forget about algebra in 8th grade. And now they're struggling in geometry. Every guidance counselor, every administrator, every teacher, and every tutor I have at my house tells me they are all struggling. And we, tonight, we're all giving extra AIS at the elementary, extra math teachers in the thing, and none of you added anything for the high school students. Where, by the way, they're the ones whose grades are on their transcripts for college. They're struggling, and none of you brought up any of that. I just don't understand. What are you going to add to our high school to give them support? There is no room in the strategies classes. That's how bad it is for the 9th graders. I'm really disappointed, and I'm really hoping you go back to the drawing board and start looking at how you can support extra help after school. That's what we have. We're telling kids, just go to extra help. There'll be somebody sitting in the library who can help you with your homework. That's not appropriate, guys. It's disappointing.
Right.
And I think our kids deserve better.
Thank you. Do we? Mr. Murphy, is there something you could look into on that level for us?
Sure.
All right.
Sure. We offer geometry lab. There are a series of labs that we offer. We do
Can you come to the mic? Yes, if you. I didn't.
Sorry, I did get that as a text from someone at home that, well, we love that we have all of our principals in the audience. The people at home can't hear you.
Hi. Hi.
Sorry.
Hi. Duly noted. Look, the ninth graders are struggling, as are ninth graders everywhere. There's a correlation between the age of the student and the age of the struggle. And Ms. Ray is right. The support model at the high school for math as well as living environment as well as ELA is voluntary. There is no mandatory minimum or maximum grade. Any student who chooses to take a lab or a support class chooses to do so and can drop it at any time that they feel that they're no longer available. As Ms. Ray mentioned, I'm just staring at the geometry lab numbers right now. The average size of a lab class in geometry is 10. There's as large as 12, as small as 7. Could there be more sections? Noted. I mean, because that is available based on availability in the students' schedule. There are other things available, such as resource room in the math department, which is manned by a math teacher, 9 periods a day. Of course, that assumes that the student has a free period and they can avail of that. Those lab classes are also available in living environment and ELA. Again, the size of the lab classes in math and living environment tend to be slightly larger. The ones in ELA tend to be slightly smaller. It is a support mechanism. It's not remediation. The same teachers who teach the support class teach the general education class. So they have the luxury of actually knowing where the curriculum is right now, and they also have the luxury of knowing the students. We're constantly revisiting the support model. Again, there's that balance between offering support classes and then compromising the student's ability to take elective classes, and therein lies the rub. So, noted. And it goes 9 through 12. This is not just a ninth grade issue. This is providing support for all the students.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Hi.
Karen, I'm sorry, could you go to that?
Oh,
just so
yeah.
in case, if a principal has to come up or somebody has to come up to respond, we have a place for them. You can pull the mic. Go.
Karen Burgee, 15 Hendrickson Avenue. I have a little bit of good news because I have some data. And my data is great data because it says our Pathways program at the high school is amazing. I can't even tell you the difference that it made in these children's lives. And I don't think that's something difficult for you to look at and find the data yourselves. If you look at that data of just that small pocket of kids, you will see the success that that 12-to-1 class is having. And just to do that tomorrow, you will see that it's successful. So why can't we bring this program to the middle school? It is so needed. A couple of meetings ago, Ms. McGinn said something about middle school being the worst years of your life, and we all laughed. There's a book written about it. It's not really that funny. It is a hard time in kids' lives. They struggle in more ways than we as adults could even deal with. And to not be giving them the appropriate place to learn it's shameful of us that we don't have a place for these kids to learn the appropriate material. I know a child in Pathways who went through middle school, took the algebra exam, got a 33 on the algebra exam. You heard me. 33, which with the conversion chart gives her a 65, and she passes the class. So it's on your data as she passed the class and the Regents exam. So data like that's not the data that we can use. We need to use the real, raw data. 33% of algebra she learned. and she went on to the high school. If that year the Pathways hadn't been there, she would have went on to geometry. But she went into Pathways and is doing amazing. I want to thank you for doing that, but I really want to ask you to do it for our middle schoolers because they really need it. It would be so much more appropriate. This child that I speak of went to high school with a 33 on her algebra and not knowing her multiplication tables. How are we sending kids to 9th grade without knowing the multiplication? She now knows it because guess who taught it to her? Her Pathways TA, because she was ready to learn it at that point. This is a success story, but it also has a part that was really heartbreaking in middle school. And I would say all the way in elementary school, because it was difficult. So again, I want to thank you for the wonderful teachers in Pathways. I know we don't call it Pathways. The wonderful teachers you brought in, the great curriculum you wrote, and the success that it's having. And I urge you tomorrow to go and look at this data. It's there. We all said we have data. I also this is switching gears for a second. I wanted to ask about a do no harm for the Regents exams this year, and if that's been discussed at all, or if it's an option. There are many kids taking Regents exams this year who've struggled for the past 2 years and who may not do well and who may not pass their class because of it. So just wondering if it's been discussed. Anyone? If it hasn't, that's okay, but can we discuss it?
We can. We could definitely discuss it. Sometimes, like last year, the state even like sends a memo and like they give us guidance. There's not at this point. That doesn't mean we can't have a conversation.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even hear you, Mr. Murphy. I'm sure the people at home didn't hear you.
The course averages, is that what you're talking to, that?
I'm referring to that if they take the Regents exam and bomb it, that doesn't bring their average down for the class. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. We'll have a conversation.
Okay. One last, sorry, am I under my 3 minutes? One last thing is, I've been talking about this for years now. We have a trip in the 8th grade for the National Junior Honor Society, and I just want to say I would like to have a conversation about it. I would like to discuss it further. I know it's on the table, but it is an inappropriate reward for a National Honor Society, and I would like to have a discussion. It doesn't have to be here.
Karen, if you'd like to come back at the end of the meeting for opportunity visitors.
I'm in budget still,
You're in budget still. And then we can try and answer. That would be a very complicated question to answer and speak about here, but if you'd like to come back up.
It's just something that I would like us all to be thinking about, is the appropriateness of this.
Come on back up at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Hello, Gina Marie Bounds, 24 Ardsley Place. I wasn't going to come up tonight, but I actually just wanted to come up to piggyback off of our last resident's comments. Personally, I want to say thank you to her because I've worked with her very closely in the special ed community. I know we're not allowed to say names, so I'm being careful. And I just want to say that the prior speaker here advocated for our kids for years and years. You should know that we're going into this co-teaching model. She no longer has children in elementary school, and I feel forever indebted to her for having advocated that. And to hear her tonight to advocate for the Pathways program for middle school, knowing that I'm about to go tomorrow morning to a team meeting for my own third grader, terrified at a very important point in his academic career, I am praying to God that by the time he gets to 6th grade, we're going to have a middle school Pathways program, because otherwise, unfortunately, we're going to have to think about other options that this district can't afford him. So again, thank you to the prior speaker for advocating for our kids well beyond what her kids already went through. So she's advocating for all of them, and I really, really beg all of you to continue. I mean, this district has come so far in special ed. We talked about 2018, one of our board members. I was very much a part of that, and from then till now, we've come a long way, but let's not stop. Let's continue to keep going. Let's get pathways to middle school. Let's continue with the co-seated classroom, and just, that's my plea tonight, is just to applaud what we've done, but to please make a plan, and I'll put this into the budget discussion, and to start to budget for how we bring all the great programs that we put into the middle school. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bounds. Jeannie, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to address the way that we refer to special classes, because I think there's also some confusion that lies within that. In special education, if you're in a special class, that means that it's a special education teacher and then a ratio of children. Our programs at the middle and high school currently have up to 12 students in them with a special ed teacher and a teaching assistant. The names that we use make it sound like we have certain programs in certain schools and not in others. And the only real delineation at the middle school was that they call that program the core class. And there is a core class at the high school, and now there's a pathways class. If you take the names out of it, they're really both 12-1-1 special classes. One is generally assessed, and one is alternately assessed. And at the middle school next year, I think we're really headed in a great direction, because the team there, the building psychologist, the special class teachers, and Ms. McGinn and I met and looked at all the students that currently attend the middle school, and there will be a special class program that's alternately assessed and a special class program that will be generally assessed. So when the students leave the middle school, the students who have been in the generally assessed program will have more rigor academically. The standards are different for alternately assessed students versus generally assessed, so they're working on different skill sets. And the reason why we did this is the anticipation is that those students would likely then go into the high school into what we're referring to as pathways. And we may develop it further, but at this point, that's a really great place to start. I think we also have to be mindful that we can't just open and I'm obviously a special ed director, so I'm all about developing our special ed programs. But I think we also have to be careful about opening a class and just saying, we're going to fill it with students. CSE meets. They review goals for students and how students are doing, and if a parent is concerned, certainly a student can now have access to either of those special classes at both the middle and the high school. And so where it may not be, and I'm so happy to hear, I do see the students in the Pathways program at the high school and how wonderful they're doing. We're developing vocational education programs for them so that they can earn a local diploma. In my opinion at this point, I think this is a really great place to start, and the team is so vested in making this happen for our students. Our middle school teachers have gotten additional certifications in content areas so that they're experts in the delivery of the curriculum, and that they can really prepare the students for the rigor of high school if they should go into the Pathways program, which these are, again, generally assessed programs where students sit for Regents exams. So where we may not be exactly where we want to be, we're always growing and we're always improving. It is a really great first step, and it is giving kids more options at the middle school should they need them. So I just want to keep explaining that, because I do think, although we love the names of our programs here, and I know that, I do think sometimes it lends to some confusion about what it offers students.
Sorry, I just had a follow-up question to what you're saying, Ms. Love. So are you saying that today what exists, because you're right, let's put names aside, because that maybe it's getting more confusing. Are you saying today what exists in the middle school is a self-contained alternate setting and a self-contained regular setting, where they could, a self-contained classroom for special ed kids that are striving for a Regents diploma?
Right, they're generally assessed. So that means you're working towards a Regents diploma if ultimately you earn.
But it's a self-contained. I'm saying not ICT.
Right.
I'm saying they're taking
Correct.
their core classes in a self-contained classroom with a special ed teacher full time.
Who's certified in
certified
the
dual
areas. Yeah.
dual certified.
And then if you
full-time.
are alternately assessed and you need a class, the other class is going to be alternately assessed. And then we have the ICT program, which right now is the teacher is in there every other day.
I'm familiar with the ICT and I'm familiar with the core, which is typically alternately assessed from what I understand. But from my feedback, and again, I don't have a special ed kid in middle school, but from my peers, like I said, we rely on those parents who came before us. I didn't understand that there was a self-contained classroom with a dual certified teacher that's teaching special ed kids on a Regents track. And
for next year.
So this is new.
This is for next year.
So what I'm asking for, you've just achieved right now. Well, I'm saying like that because that's what I'm asking for the clarification.
My friend over here, Ms. McGinn, helped very, very much. We did this together, right? Do you have anything you want to add?
But you can't talk from there because the people at home are saying they can't hear you.
And just know
if this
that
is new, this is wonderful.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, this is from my understanding before I came up here tonight, that was not the situation. That was not the case.
And the teachers at the middle school have these certifications already. The special education, special class teachers have been working on this for years to acquire these different certifications. So it's just a matter of, again, delineating between generally assessed and alternately assessed in the special class. And then moving forward, we're talking about looking at the data and seeing how it goes and possibly breaking it up even further so there's more concentration, possibly by content area. But that's where we're starting for next year. That's what's available. Thank you for your creative, out-of-the-box mind.
It's where we're starting now and moving forward, and it's a work in progress. So as we're putting, things together and this kind of work in progress together, it's different than, okay, we're having a Pathways program and here we go. It's not.
So what does it look like for September? And I totally appreciate
right now.
As long as we're moving towards that, that's all that matters.
What does it look like for September?
What does it look like in September? Yeah.
I don't know because everything in the budget has to go through so I can make a schedule.
So to the board and the administration, I'm asking you to make this work. This is what these kids need.
It's in the budget.
And this came from, we had a wonderful training with everyone at the middle school and the high school on the superintendent determination option, and that's where it came from when we started talking about how that particular pathway makes the local diploma very accessible to a group of students who might have otherwise not earned it or had a really difficult time or possibly missed out on vocational education in the process. And so then after that meeting, we all met and said, let's really look at the kids and ask ourselves, if now that is an option for them, how many of the kids do we have or really should be working on that Regents level curriculum, even if in the end they get a local diploma? That's a celebration, that's wonderful. And how are we going to make that happen? And broke up the classes that way. And so right now that's how our classes are divided.
Okay, great. I just think as a parent, like when we're not willing to, we haven't adjusted our expectations to say, okay, we're at the local diploma level or the superintendent's designation. Like I'm still going to work my butt off to make sure that my kid gets a Regents diploma. But in an advanced for all curriculum, that's not going to be possible. So that's why I'm saying more importantly, like there are kids that need extra support, that need a self-contained, that need a dual certified teacher. My whole thing is like, I just got to get to middle school and it's going to be there for me in middle school. And so that's why I think it's so important. It's not about, listen, maybe that's what they'll wind up with the superintendent designation or local diploma, but like a lot of us aren't ready. We were not there yet. We want to give our kids the best shot of getting that Regents diploma. And so if this is a start, then again, I applaud you again for being a district that takes special ed kids, and puts them as a priority, but among others. But I really think it's important that we bring that to the middle school. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bounds. Would anybody else like to come to the mic on a budget issue? What I would do is like the board has visited all the schools within the past month, I'll say, just to go over capital issues or needs of the school, and we've all we've all been to one building or two buildings, and if anybody would like to speak to what you saw at the building, or a principal add to a need or something that you maybe are looking for that maybe we haven't paid attention to or acknowledged. Anybody?
I think we shared what we had in reports, and I think it's all reflected in what we've done. But correct me if I'm wrong, any principal whose school I visited, if I missed anything. No, I'm getting thumbs up, okay.
Go ahead.
Did Mr. Walter here?
I just saw him leave. Is Mr. Walters
I just
coming
turned
back?
around, he was gone. Oh, okay. I'll come back to Riverside then. I shared my notes with Mr. Walter and Ms. Lallo and Mr. Bartels, and the only thing that was not on the list that I saw was the upgrade to the faculty room. There's some real work that needs to be done on the Riverside faculty room, so I'm hoping that we can make that happen for our Riverside staff. I think it's a really important message that we take care of where they spend time when they're not teaching, and right now I don't know that many of them are, because it really needs an uplift, so I would like to see that.
It's been the same since I started in that school a long time ago.
And then Ms. Messier and myself toured this building, Southside High School, Mr. Murphy and Mr. Walsh, and I shared my notes. We shared our notes with him as well. I don't know if Mr. Murphy wanted to add anything, or if we did a good job on our notes, then I guess there's no need, but.
No, we're good.
And then I also toured Greenhouse with Mr. Van Zant, and I think we also clarified yep, I'm good on that too. Okay, great.
I had the pleasure of touring the middle school with Ms. McGinn. We took a look at all the leaks, I should say, and I know that they were reflected. A lot of work was reflected from that in the budget. One thing that we hadn't seen in the list of capital improvements in a prior meeting was some work that was going to be done to the special ed rooms, but Mr. Bartels had clarified that that would be done as well. So I think we're covered there. Anything else?
One thing that there's just one, and it has some leaks. But no. With the new social worker coming over from the high school to the middle school, we need to refurbish which was the school store that turned into the isolation room, which is now going to be the social worker's office. So that has leaks, needs a new floor, and furniture, and maybe a couch. It's a social worker office. But that has to be redone. But that was not something, you remember the isolation room? Mm-hmm. That's going to turn into her office, because we no longer need the isolation room, but it's just a little room.
We're grateful not to need the isolation room anymore, so
that's a good
100%.
This is a good thing. And I'm very grateful to have another social worker coming over, because we need that. That'll put us at 2.5.
I know a lot of people, Mrs. McGinn, were asking about the tent. We saw it. You can't miss
tent
it now.
Lovely.
It is there.
And we have our certificate of occupancy.
Great.
And our plan is to start next week. We're just sort of putting together the supervision of it, that during the lunch periods of 5, 6, and 7, currently the kids are either eating in the lunchroom or they're in the auditorium. And so 15 kids from each will sign up for a week at a time to go outside and eat. That's going to be the pilot program. And then they'll be out there for the lunch period. If we could add more to that, we will. The custodians are going to roll out chairs on a rack, and at the end of 7th period, they'll roll the chairs back in to the building. So we're going to use it for an outdoor eating space, and then teachers are also excited to use it, if it's like really sunny out or whatever, to sit out there and have classes as it gets warmer. So we're going to use it.
Yeah.
And we're pointing the cameras more directly at it so evening activities can be kept at bay, if you know what I mean.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for making it happen. I think that's a great addition. I also toured Wilson. I see Mr. Duffy probably couldn't make it tonight, but just a point of clarity, we got to tour the Synagogue space, which is where the music and arts specials are being held right now, which is just an amazing addition for that building. And I know Mr. Bartels had said that we had committed to basically 3 years. We were going to be re-upping that contract and that lease so we can continue that space for now as we start our bond discussion. So that was just really great to see. Both buildings are in impeccable shape. Their custodians are amazing. We thank them. And I also did tour the St. Agnes trailer and got to help with some upgrades I think were able to be made now and not have to wait for next year's budget because they were, carpets
Yes.
and safety windows and things like that. So I think that covers
Yeah,
everything
they
I
did
did.
get those done.
Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you.
I had the pleasure of touring Hewitt, which I super enjoyed. It was really fun going and seeing all of the kids in action. I believe that we had all of the lists of needs for Hewitt down and submitted. I don't think we missed anything. If so, Mrs. Prague, just let us know. Good? Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to we're going to speak about fundraising first. Then we'll do policies. That's how it's listed. Before we start, there is the narrative in the community that or the board is trying to eliminate fundraising, or at the current time go after athletic fundraising, and that's not the case at all. We've had some parents reach out to us and with concerns of being asked to raise large amounts of money. That prompted us to look at the athletic budget, add more money into the athletic budget, and also add the coaches, because that was some of the concern of raising the money was, to help fund some coaches. That was the intent of all of that. We are grateful for our parent groups and our booster club who raise money and do things that the school district can't afford to do, and we will always appreciate that funding from the parent groups. The process that we'll go through for the policies is they're existing policies, and we're just trying to clarify them. The attorneys looked at them, make sure everything was legal, and we're just trying to go back and say we have to follow our policies that have been on books for many years. So with that, I would I'll just start a conversation with Ms. Rosetto. There's trust and agency accounts for all our teams. And what that money is from fundraising groups, the students, the outside groups. It goes into an account that the district holds, and then monies are dispersed out of it. There are just some certain questions as to things that I think the district should be paying for, as opposed to asking the parent groups or so on to raise money for. So those are the things that I would like to question. If I could run through them, and then we can just go down the line. I'm looking here like, okay, in the athletic department, you have basketball tournament entry fees. Oh no, I'm sorry, I crossed that off. Okay, and one line is laundry supplies. But okay, if we need to, I'm just saying, if we need to wash the uniforms or whatever, then that should come out of the district, not out of fundraising accounts.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I would think. I would think that would be where it would belong. No.
I don't know why it was purchased out of that, but
it's there. And the Healy Awards, there are water cases in here. Food for interviewing committees. Is that a side thing from the athletic team playing? What is that from?
That fundraising is not the fundraising that the teams do. That is when we have when the varsity as coaches meet, I buy them pizza. When the interviewing committee for when we hire phys ed teachers, same thing. I buy them pizza.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be something the district should pay for?
Gladly, you give me the money, that'd be spectacular.
Well,
but
we did increase your budget. I'm just trying to put like these accounts into a place where we shouldn't be asking our community to raise money for something that I would like to see the district pay for, as opposed to making them pay for it.
Fabulous, thank you.
Yeah, we did increase the athletic budget by a good amount to hopefully get rid of some of these expenses from some of these fundraising activities.
Okay, in one account we were it's lists paying for a coach's certification,
A volunteer coach, correct.
but if that's our policy, it should come out of a district account, not being raised money from a team. That would be the way I look at it. I don't know how anybody else looks at it. If we need to pay for a coach to be certified, no matter what the status of that coach, it shouldn't be the burden of the outside groups to fund that. It should be the district's burden.
Okay, easily changed.
Well, also, if you're going to pay for a certification for a coach, why are we paying for the certifications? I thought our policy was that we don't pay for certifications for coaches, but if we are doing that, then it should be across the board. Why are there only some coaches in here whose certifications are paid and others aren't?
Do we pay for certification for for most coaches, or?
No, they're responsible to certify themselves.
All
But
right,
but in the case of, in a few cases, where money is a hardship and they are not being paid because they're volunteers.
Okay, for
This one coach.
that, I think you should still appeal to the district to pay that, not fundraising
Totally good,
events.
thank you.
Okay.
But is it all volunteers, Carol?
No.
Just some?
Right.
Correct.
So I would, reach out to the business
Okay.
office and.
Terrific, thank you.
Can I just comment on that quick? I have an issue with that because we're paying for someone's coaching license, but that coach may not stay employed in our district infinitely. They may move on to another district, and then we've essentially paid for their coaching license. I don't think we should be paying for anyone's coaching license. If we need volunteer coaches, we should really look and say, maybe we don't have volunteer coaches and we pay all of our coaches if there's a need for that coach on the team. I think the volunteer coaching brings us into a very tricky situation where it's a lot of time and a lot of hours, and I'm sure that there are many people who like to give back to the community, but I think it puts us in a very tricky situation. I do object to paying for anyone's coaching license at all. Again, if there's a need on a sport for more coaching, then I think that's a conversation we need to have as a district and make sure that we're employing a coach from the district to make up that need.
I believe that thought process is how we got the assistant coaches. That's been our conversation. To eliminate some of the the volunteer coaches and create where we need assistant coaches. So that's kind of how we got to where we are now.
Right, from having parents write in and say that the fundraising was being used to pay volunteer coaches, and that wouldn't be appropriate. So we will pay coaches where they're appropriate.
Correct.
And that was the purpose of increasing the budget, so we could pay people
Correct.
who are giving of their time and doing their job.
Correct. We are very appreciative of that.
Carol, do you have a hard time in a general sense finding volunteer coaches? I'm curious if maybe in those cases teams had fundraised and had extra funds and used it to help recruit more help. I'm just curious if how hard is it to find a volunteer coach? I believe there's a $1,000 licensing fee that they need to pay to be certified, correct? So there's an expense to a volunteer coach and then they're not getting paid. Can you give us a sense of how hard they are to find?
I can say I don't go out and look for volunteer coaches. That happens to be, if a current or paid coach knows somebody that wants to volunteer their time, a lot of times it's people who have retired from their full-time jobs and love the sport and just want to give back. That's some cases. Some cases it's just the young guys that are hungry and ladies and that want to just, again, have an opportunity to coach. And start as a volunteer and hope to get a position once one opens. There are 3 levels of cost to certification. If you are a certified, New York State certified phys ed teacher, you only have to do and maintain first aid for coaches, CPR, AED, and concussion testing. Concussion certification. Because in the requirements to get your degree, you cover all of the other safety and other topics that you need. As a certified, New York State just certified other than phys ed teacher, you'd have to take the same 3 plus your 3 coaching classes over the next 3 years, or 3 to 5 years. And then if you are what's considered other, so other than a certified teacher, then you have to go through the whole rigmarole. So you have to, DASA and child abuse and all the certifications that a certified teacher has to take. All of these rules went into play in 2012 because there were very unqualified, unvetted volunteers just kind of walking on the sideline. So New York State put in those really safety measures, also kind of dissuading non-teachers, in my opinion, a little bit, because they want the New York State teachers to have to fill these positions. So that's kind of, and it is very expensive. You have to do all those certifications. You have to get fingerprinted. You have to apply online for a temporary coaching license. You have to do that every year. And then you have to take all those coaching courses. So it does end up adding up.
So with the addition of assistant coaches across the board, do you get a sense yet from your coaches of will teams that traditionally used a volunteer coach in the absence of an assistant coach, will they still look to bring on a volunteer coach if possible, or are they going to say now we have a paid assistant coach and volunteer coaches, are they going, in your opinion, falling to the wayside now with the addition of the assistant coaches? I'm just wondering what the
I don't
sense
think
is.
they'll go away, but I do think it will limit it.
Okay.
Or reduce the number.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go down the list. A lax convention registration,
That's a recruiting convention.
and
Yes.
not a district.
Again, these were just things that were never covered, so if we are permitted to cover them, you let me know and we could easily change that. All I have to do is put in a purchase order. So we just need
If
to.
if it is a function of the school, I'm looking at making it a function of the school budget.
Okay.
All right, as opposed to
Okay.
fundraising. I'm going to keep going down. I'm sorry about
Sure,
that.
no worries.
Journal ads, annual association dues,
Yeah.
county plaques. I see that a lot.
So right now, with the budget that I have or have had in the past, we limit all the high school teams to $1,000 per season for plaques. So there are a few sports that want to have like double the amount of plaques. So they just utilize their fundraising for whatever additional awards they want to give. Everybody gets, an S letter through the district, and then there is, a limit to the number of plaques. If I put more money in that budget, then we don't need to do that, but that is, to me, fair and consistent across all teams.
Okay. There's a 10 by 20 tent in here on the fundraising line. If that's a district item,
That actually isn't, because you don't necessarily need one to perform the sport, so that was something that they just chose to fundraise for.
Which sport was that tent for?
that's soccer.
Soccer.
Asked for that. Oh, soccer in there. Okay, there is a question. I know the Booster Club pays for huddle or gives huddle to all the athletic teams, but there are charges in here for varsity media. Here's another varsity media live stream. Can you explain huddle assist?
Yes. Okay. So Booster Club very generously every year pays for the basic program. So we being paid supervisor or whatever, we film a game, and that gets downloaded into Huddle by either whoever's videoing or the coach. Coach then can have their players look at it. The players can use the film to make their recruitment videos. The Huddle Assist is actually, in addition to what Booster Club pays, that some of the teams choose to fundraise for, and that breaks down plays. So the technology will break down each of the plays and gives data to the coaches. It is normally utilized for football, for lacrosse, soccer's, I don't know whether we actually use it here, but yeah, I think we do. Soccer's and basketball, those type of sports. I recently spoke with the Huddle representative, actually today again, and because so many teams are now wanting to purchase the Huddle Assist programs, we're right at the border of the athletic package, which would be $8,000, which could be go through the BOCES code and be aidable, and that is we've never done that before. But we can actually, do that, and then it covers all the assists. Every team gets a huddle, so it's a more comprehensive package. We've never been, close to that before, but now more and more teams, more and more coaches and teams are using the huddle assists and paying for it on their own. So that's an option that we have.
So the district would.
If the district covers it, then that eliminates the need for fundraising for at least 3 or 4 of the sports.
And what is the Varsity Media live stream?
So we currently, we have our 2 Pixelot cameras, one in the main gym and one in the on the main field, and that's an automated camera that films. So that's what we utilize now, and then we pay a supervisor, like just somebody from the school, to go and film the games at Skelos. So those are just usually a coach that goes and just stands up on the thing and films. So a couple of the teams choose to professionally, that's Varsity Media. They are a professional company that films games. I know we utilized them this year at the middle school because of COVID and we weren't allowing people in, and et cetera. So we utilized them, and they basically charge $250 a game. So that would be for professionally done. So.
But if that was a reason, if that was done for us to not have spectators, then it should be a district expense, not an expense on fundraising.
No. What you're doing wasn't because of district expense. We paid for the middle school, so the district paid for the middle school. What you're seeing is that football or lacrosse? Both. It doesn't
I'm in
matter.
girls soccer now. $250 Varsity Media live stream for the 10-27 girls quarter soccer game.
Correct. That was actually before the district started paying for that. That was one playoff game, and then moving forward, we covered the cost. But I do know that football fundraises to film their 4 home games, because it's much different than what our cameras can do. Versus a professional company coming in. So some of the teams choose to do that to have a more professional product.
So they use the huddle, whatever the additional is, and then also Varsity?
Varsity Media takes the film and downloads it into the Huddle program, and then Huddle Assist breaks down the program.
So in the football fundraiser, it was spent $4,000 for Varsity Media?
Correct. Yeah, that's the wow. So yeah.
Those are the questions I highlighted. But overall, when a fundraiser is run, Mr. Barnowski, if you can help me with that, it's my understanding, and if you could correct me, that to have a fundraiser, you must say, we are having a fundraiser and we are going to buy X, Y, and Z with it. And that's all you can buy with it. You can't buy anything else. And the description of some of the expenses in here, I don't know that the parents were made aware of what they were raising money for. Some things, the district, definitely in my opinion, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but it should be on a budget instead of on that. But other things are we sure that the parents are knowing? Because we've had parents reach out to us and say, my son raised X amount of dollars for football or soccer, but I don't know, it was never explained to them what it was exactly for. And don't we, as a matter of fact, have to be exact in what we're raising our money for in a fundraiser?
That's what your policy says. That's what your policy says.
I don't think you're on.
Practice.
Okay.
You should conform to your policy, absolutely.
He can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Yes, that's what your policy provides, and I think it's a good practice, and That was the redlining that we gave to you when
Okay.
this review
Well,
was
those policies were reviewed. So what we're going to ask for in the future is, as we move forward with fundraising in the school district, and we're just looking at athletics now. We're going to look at all the clubs, the school clubs, everything that has to do with it. We need to be transparent.
Yep.
We need to, if you're asking for money from somebody, they need to know what they're paying for exactly, and it can't be discretionary after that. And that's the law. That's what our policies say, or that's our rules. It's not necessarily the law.
Well, it's consistent with the law.
Well, anybody, if it's a 501c3 corp, they have to raise money for only things in their wheelhouse. They can't veer off. So they can't buy soap for something out of raising money for another thing. So that's our only goal.
Okay.
And we have operated the district for many years this way, but we're just trying to correct moving forward. That's all. That's what we're asking for. So we're just looking for at least I believe that's what we're looking for, and we'll talk about that in the policy. We just want transparency. We want our parents to be comfortable with if they're donating money. It's as simple as that. And I'm not attacking athletics. I'm not attacking you. I just want it to be easier for a parent to say, "Oh, I'm supporting little Johnny's soccer team to do this or that," not having this big number, because the numbers came. My boys have been at the school, I think 4 years now. The numbers went from little to gigantic, and it's hard for some people. And you want to do the best by your kid, but I'm grandstanding. I'm sorry, I wasn't talking to you.
And Mr. O'Shea, if I may, the other language that we added was, of course, at no time should the students' participation in the activity be contingent upon their involvement in fundraising.
Right.
I think that was part of the issue when some of the concerns that were raised by parents, for instance, using like SNAP raise or 99 pledges. These sorts of things were newer to the district, I guess, and the amounts were inconsistent with what fundraising was in the past. So I guess that's why parents started to write in about them. For instance, like for boys soccer, the goal with the child's picture was $900 each child, and it appears they raised $16,695. They were asked to provide 20 emails from family and friends, and then the family and friends are then being solicited not once but repeatedly. A family would get a reminder email saying, "Did you donate?" And it was for team building events and apparel. There's also a cheer page that shows who donated and the amount. So in keeping with what we're trying to accomplish here, if there is a child who can't, I'm not saying anyone said to a child, you have to raise $900 or you're not playing, no one's suggesting that. But if you have a child and everyone can see what other people are fundraising, I know one parent had written in, that's a great way to inspire competition, and that may be true, but it also may be difficult for the child who can't fundraise that amount and everyone's looking at it, and that family is looking at all the money one child raised and the other child cannot. And in addition to that, when I looked at the sheet of what was actually purchased with this money, there were several team dinners, which is nice, team building dinners for the boys soccer at a restaurant and a bowling event. But there was a large amount of gear, several different pairs of pants and sweatpants, and like an unbelievable amount of what my kids would call swag.
Yeah.
Right? So that amount, the parents are saying, had I known I was going to get 3 pair of sweatpants, 2 flak jackets, all of this stuff, I wouldn't have fundraised for that, because you can have a fundraiser where you send home the thing, like the things we used to do. You buy your kid the sweatshirt that says it, or you get your kid the backpack. That seems an inordinate amount of money to ask a parent, especially a lot of the parents here, where we have kids who are in multiple sports. It's a very athletic community. Yep. One grandma is getting an email for her 4 grandkids that play 2 sports a year and asking her to raise this kind of money. It seems not in line with what we're doing. If we were a district that was poor and we were not able to do these things, and the strength of actually having an athletic team be able to do what they do was fundraising, I would understand that. But we're a district where parents are paying a lot of taxes So I think when these sorts of things started to come home and they're not in line with what the soccer team used to do, girls soccer, everybody's bought the t-shirts for $15. We've been doing that for years. You give your money, you get your t-shirt, and maybe it's a little bit higher priced and the money goes to the team. That's all what we've been doing for years. These sorts of things parents started to write in on. So I don't know if we should avoid doing those or if there needs to be some oversight in how we're doing those sorts of things, like 99 pledges, asking each kid for $500 or $200 on a football team when you have 46 or 48 kids on a team. That's an awful lot of money. Where is the money all going? Parents are concerned about that. So I think we have to have, when we're having fundraisers, by teams in particular, oversight as to the method that's being used, what's the particular fundraiser approved under our policy, because that's another point. We have to have fundraisers that have been approved. Is there pressure, either real or perceived, to fundraise? And is there equity in how the fundraising or the gift or the scholarship is being given? And who's conducting the fundraising and for what purpose? So if each of the coaches is doing it, are you overseeing it? I think there's some confusion from parents that are writing in on how these fundraisers are being conducted.
Okay, so let me hopefully catch all your points. Based on the concerns, we've had many conversations and things are being adapted. The SNAP raise was the first time we ever did that one. Enough said. 99 pledges, I actually called the company today, again, and actually one of the coaches did. And we found out that it is confirmed that we do, because I know one of the points was setting a goal for each kid, an individual goal. So it was confirmed that we do not have to set an individual goal. We can just say team goal is $3,000. Little Susie gets the link from her coach. She sends it out to however many people she chooses to send it out to. Those people, only those 10 people, can donate to her page either anonymously or saying it's, Aunt Susie. A lot of Susies in the family. And then her fundraising page at the top right says total to date, whatever. So if she raises $2 or she raises $100, it doesn't matter because it's just total raise. It's not total out of 500. And then at the bottom left, it says team total. So nothing in between. I only can see who donated to me, and it could be the anonymous or with their name. So that is confirmed with 99 pledges. One of the reasons why we went electronic was because we were told to steer away from collecting any cash by kids. That eliminated selling the t-shirt. That eliminated a lot of things. So we were trying to be creative and compensate for the not collecting of cash, which I do understand. You're walking around school with a boatload of money. So I think that's what happened. We teetered one way, went the other. After the March meeting, I did create a draft of a potential fundraising request form for the coaches. It could be used for everybody, and basically just team level, school year, coach, what the funds will be used for, the activity requested, the duration of activity, dates requested if that's not a repeat, and then approved or disapproved. So that's how it could be more controlled from this end. Yeah. I always have the verbal conversation with the coaches. So it is anything the coaches themselves do, I am aware of. So I did not, I didn't know the specifics in detail with the SNAP raise company, but I was aware of 99 pledges, but I didn't look to see that there was like a leaderboard. The coach will still get the leaderboard, but no one will be able to see it. And I do know that the whether perceived or not, but the coaches do say that there's no difference. Like a kid that raises nothing versus a kid that raises $1 trillion, they get all the same things. They're part of all the team fundraising. They're part of, the team building activities, and no one gets slighted. And playtime doesn't revolve around who fundraises the more money. And I don't think that's perceived by any of the kids. So that's just, I don't know if I answered all your questions.
Can I just ask
Christine?
one more question
Sure.
on the football line? There was parents donated, and the line on the line on the deposit is football camp deposit. So did a football camp happen?
Football camp. Does it say anything else?
There's $4,650 was deposited on
Oh.
7/21 for a football camp deposit, but then I don't see a disbursement for a football camp.
Okay, so that is actually I believe, the youth football clinic. Maybe I wrote the wrong, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. We do a youth clinic for first through 6th, 7th, or 8th graders, and they participate, and that money goes into the football program. It's the coaches don't get paid, the kids don't get paid, they volunteer their time.
Okay, so it's-
And then that money goes towards purchasing of stuff for that team. So that's their fundraiser for
So
the
it
year.
was just the word deposit was listed there because it was a deposit, not that it was a
Correct.
deposit. Okay.
Correct.
And then the popcorn fundraiser that you had this year, the way I read it is you raised the football team raised $22,000, but $11,000 of it stayed with the company. So, it's fine, but if parents knew that it was only a 50% of the money that they raised was going towards the programs they wanted to go to, I don't know that would go over so well with the parents.
Correct.
They might have put that out, actually, of what proceeds. I've seen many fundraisers where they tell you X amount of proceeds will be donated to. So I don't know that that's necessarily.
Well, I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it.
that's
But
not
not to say that
necessarily
it definitely isn't there, but
I think one of my concerns here is that we have on the agenda fundraising. We're only talking about athletics.
Tara, we addressed that.
John,
We're
I'm going to finish my thought now,
But
please.
let me finish because we
Thank you.
talked about that.
We're going line by line through an athletics fundraising packet. There's clubs, there's arts, there's other things that are impacted. So I think we should be talking about fundraising at a higher level here. I'm giving my opinion now. I really think that fundraising is voluntary, okay? Nobody's saying you need to pay $900 to be on this team. And there's an implication there that we have to clear. I totally, fully agree that that's a ridiculous amount of money for any child to feel pressure to raise. If they felt pressure to raise, I think the district would never want them to feel that way. So I think we should clear that out right now. That unreasonable and large goals of fundraising across the board, whether it's any organization in our district, should not be the case. And of course, we want to ensure equity, regardless of the amount of money that they spend, so I think we all agree on that as well. But I really don't want to take away from the actual higher level fundraising conversation, which is that it does provide a sense of pride and purpose in our students to fundraise. So whether it then goes back to the Ukraine or to families in need, or our 8th graders are doing beautiful community service projects right now that have some degree of charity. And I think that this is like a skill that we're trying to instill in our children, and I just don't want the conversation to go awry where we're almost marking fundraising efforts as being bad. I don't agree with that. I think that's a civil, kind of part of ourselves that we continue into our adulthood. I know I do. It's something I believe in. And I love the fact that our clubs and our arts and our athletics are supporting these efforts of our students and instilling this in them. So for me personally, as long as there are no unrealistic goals, that there is equity in what is raised, that it's accounted for, that there's fairness, but that our students can feel good about what they're doing, that's what matters really the most to me. So if we have checks and balances in place, we have policies we're reviewing, we want to make sure that things are done correctly and respectfully, and not making people feel put on the spot for what they can or cannot raise. But just having raised students in this district, we have PTA initiatives all the time raising money that's going back to kids. And I know this isn't about PTA, this is about students, and it's about coaches, and it's about, should be about everything else. But there is a sense of pride in the community of look what we can do together. And I just really feel like at that 30,000-foot view, we shouldn't lose that conversation here. And I really would like, if there's going to be a deep dive, that it's done district-wide, because this does feel targeted, and I'm just at a loss for why.
Because the emails that came in specifically about this fundraising the $900 SNAP raise, the 99 pledges, $500 each. The emails that came in did not come in about music fundraising, club fundraising, PTA fundraising, or any other fundraising. So we were addressing this specific issue with Ms. Rosetto.
And as I opened, I said we will continue to look into it because it is a problem. It's a problem that the attorneys brought up also. It's not about just this, but it's a starting point. And we are addressing this one because that's where the issues came in from parents. I never said fundraising is bad. I personally fundraise money for special things. Fundraising is a good aspect of our society. It does make people feel. So for you to imply that that's what I'm implying is totally over the top.
There are also reasons why we have these policies, and the attorneys can speak to that more, but one 501c corp cannot fundraise for another 501c corp unless they have a shared mission. And I learned that being a PTA person. I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. We were trying to do a fundraiser once and give part of the money to breast cancer. My mother's a survivor. The woman who we were doing it for was a mom at Hewitt, and we wanted to raise money by selling a t-shirt and give half to Susan G. Coleman and half to Hewitt PTA. Who knew? We had an accountant who happened to be very well versed in her area, and she said, you guys can't do that, you risk your charter. We didn't know. Who knew, right? And who wouldn't think breast cancer fundraising wasn't a good thing? No one's saying these things shouldn't be done, right? But that is a rule, and the lawyers can speak to it, our accountants can speak to it. It's not my wheelhouse, not my kind of law, but that was an issue that we faced, and that happens a lot. We're not saying kids shouldn't do good things and raise money and give back. Kids should be going, like the soccer girls go, and lend their time to tutor young kids in soccer. That's giving back. But raising $900 and then buying 6 pairs of sweatpants and going bowling, that might be a good team activity. That's not the thing we're talking about, and that's where the letters came in. So it's not an attack on fundraising. A parent did write in and say something about my husband and I donating Super Bowl tickets to post-prom. We did do that, and when we did it, we donated those tickets. Post-prom was a PTA activity. The PTA had already approved the post-prom fundraiser with Mr. Murphy and followed the policy that they were supposed to get approval, and the funds were raised for that year's post-prom. We did give a donation. Those funds couldn't have been used for post-prom at the end of the year because we didn't have a prom and we didn't have a post-prom because there was a pandemic. But at the very end of all of that, there was a suggestion, again, not because people want to do things wrong, that maybe the money should just stay in a post-prom account for the next year. Because of COVID, maybe we wouldn't be able to raise money the following year. And those that know better said, you can't do that. Parents gave money, they fundraised, family members. So these kids could have post-prom, and these kids deserved that money. And that's what happened at the end.
And we
didn't
gave
just
that money
carry it
back
over.
to every student.
Every
and,
student.
And we also are not talking about 501c3s. So we're going off on a tangent here. And again, would like to bring it back to, let's keep the purpose where it should be. Let's put checks and balances in. Let's make sure things are appropriate. But let's keep focus on the fact that I believe as a district, we believe in fundraising for good. And there are a lot of things in place that always can be better, but we have to keep things at that 30,000 foot view because we're zoning in where we unnecessarily do not need to. So there's like there's a feeling that there's a lack of trust here on this topic, and I would argue for the people who wrote in, I appreciate that. You should have been responded to. You should have been given an answer as to what was found with the question that you asked. Because now we have this as an agenda item, but all we're doing is pinpointing. And so that's my opinion, and I think we should focus on policy and move on from this topic right now. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Rosetto, that you were put on the spot again. I appreciate that. Thank you for answering the questions, but I do believe we should focus on policy. That's our job as a board.
Thank you, Mrs. Hackett. Anybody else have a comment?
I don't really have too many comments. I agree in the fact that we have to follow our policy. We clearly have policies. What seems to be lacking is a clear universal procedure for all fundraisers, athletics, arts, music. That includes a rationale for the fundraiser, which is then vetted by an administrator and approved by an administrator. And I think if we had that in place, we wouldn't really have any problems with fundraising, because it would be a very clear-cut system that would be applicable, usable, and we could be accountable for it. I would like to say with regards to athletics, I think athletics, as a community, we need to decide if athletics is a priority of this district, and I think it is. And that being said, I do think that athletics needs a good look over, in the same way that it seems like we haven't been paying attention to many things going on in the district. Athletics seems to be one of those as well. We don't have nearly as many sports as other districts our size offer. We don't have as many coaches. We don't have as big of a budget. Our budget is small compared to most districts who embrace athletics as part of their core. So moving forward, I am happy that we made additions to athletics, but if it is something that is our priority, like arts, like music, like academics, then we need to put the same amount of effort and time into looking at what we have and how we can evolve those programs, because again, our kids deserve the best, and I think we can do better.
Thank you, Erica. All right, we'll move on to the policies then. Let's speak to fundraising. In stage one, were policies 3260, booster club, and community-based clubs. The attorneys have redlined, some people made corrections to make it more appropriate to what the law reads and what we should strive for as a policy reads. So they have added a number of they have suggested a number of changes in the policy. Any questions? I'll go to E. First, meet with the superintendent of, it should be or athletic director as appropriate. Any other questions?
On letter A, it says anytime the booster club uses, the title of the policy is booster clubs and community-based clubs. So I don't know why we're just singling out the booster club. It should be any booster club or any community-based club, and then that language should be consistent throughout.
Also on number A, I was just curious because there's not a regulation that goes along with this policy, so what is the expected mechanism of getting that approval from the superintendent going to be? Is it just, an email conversation, a phone call, what will that look like? Because I think that should be clear. If there's any approvals needed, I think there should, without a regulation, I think there should be some clarity.
I agree, and we spoke about that the last time we reviewed these policies, and to Mrs. Messier's point, we have to come up here, if we're reviewing these policies, we have to come up with a system that's consistent, so that because this is our job, reviewing policy, so once we are in agreement with this, then we have to turn and make sure that everyone's aware of it. But there should be a very clearly outlined process for anyone who wants to fundraise and do this. So it just says prior approval by the superintendent. It seems pretty vague, so I think we did talk about having a more refined process that's very clearly outlined.
And a form that would go with it, so that it's for everyone, there's a record of the fact that they did seek approval and get approved.
Correct.
Mr. Barnarski?
Well, we can certainly, with respect to the first comment, I think, with respect to the first comment, we can certainly, in the very first sentence, after we say booster clubs or other related organizations, we can define those two things as, quote, clubs or clubs/organizations. So then, and then we can have that definition then go throughout the balance of the policy. With respect to A, we can either develop a reg as you suggested, or I'm happy to hear your suggestions as to how the prior approval by the superintendent should be implemented.
I feel comfortable with the regulation. I feel at any time in any other policies that we've either reviewed or written, that accompaniment, and even in B, we reference any accompanying regulations. So I would suggest putting one in place and outlining what that would look like. And I don't know if you have a template regulation for something like this, but I believe it belongs here if that's something that's being required. I don't think it's fair to put any club in a position where they have to prove that they had the approval of the superintendent. Clearly, people, are being put up against having to prove things. So I just want to make it clear, they did this, checked it off, let's move on.
And the other alternative to defining it here or have a regulation is to simply develop an administrative form that is required of all these clubs.
I'm fine with that too.
Right. Just like there's a record of when somebody has a facilities form. I mean, it's not proof, it's to orderly know what's going on, who did what, and if there's ever a question of whether or not somebody applied for something or who approved it, it's there as a record.
I mean, if you want to just get rid of it right now, you could say prior approval by the superintendent on a form prescribed by the superintendent's office.
For the next time, could we have a form that we could create so that it could go with this, like with any other policy where we have something and then there's a form that goes with it? There's a lot of those.
Yeah, we could. I believe actually Carol's actually been working on that, so she may have one ready to go.
Okay.
I would recommend keeping it at stage 1 until we see the form, please.
It's fine.
Right, 3271, solicitation of charitable donations from school children. There were no revisions on this form that was adopted in '02.
Mr. Barneski, does this particular policy, I thought Mara was saying that it correlates with a New York State regulation?
Yes, and commissioners' decisions over the years have made clear, there were a commissioner's case on jump hoops for hearts and on other types of things that it should not be in any way coercive. It must be passive and not interfere with the educational process. So yes, this, and I'm trying to think, I think, Mara, this is primarily based upon a school boards association template, but it is consistent with the regulations. And actually, there was also guidance from the commissioner's office issued in the late 90s. So yes, this is consistent with all of that.
So in 20 years, nothing's changed on this?
Nothing significant. I know Mara's checked out the regs, and the New York State Constitution obviously has not changed in this regard.
Can we move it to stage 2?
Sure.
I'm fine with that.
Erica?
That's fine with me.
'53, 5230, acceptance of gifts, grants, and bequests to the school district. This was originally formed in '02. '02 must have been a big year. Any questions or concerns?
The major addition which we made there, which is based upon our experience in other districts, is where we added the ownership of which should deplete the resources of the district, because we have had donations in other districts which seemed like a good idea at the time, but then the cost of maintenance or the property turned out to be a financial albatross around the district's neck, and therefore, had that been thought through initially, perhaps the gift would have been declined.
Our gift forms currently say, will the district incur costs in receiving or maintaining or installing this gift? So we cover that on that form also.
Yep.
Any questions, concerns?
Nope.
Nope. We'll move to stage 2.
Yep.
7450, fundraising by students. Same thing, 02.
The only question I have on this policy, in the beginning it says that students who wish to sell merchandise, they'll be able to do this with the express approval of the building principal. So for fundraising by students, again, if it's a fundraising activity, I would think that they would use that same general form that would be created. If adults were fundraising, would we have two separate forms? And then if we're going to keep the same form, the adults are going through a superintendent, but kids are going through the principal, I would prefer the process to be uniform, for no matter who's doing the fundraising. So maybe it is always at a building level. I don't know if...
I think that's complicated because there's such a difference between fundraising efforts by students directly versus ones that are being taken care of by where there's adults involved. I look at this one a little bit differently, and some of the principals are still here, but I know, for example, in elementary schools, they may have some sort of effort happening. The students are being part of some sort of charity or philanthropy, and I am assuming when we get a flyer home, backpack, that went through a building principal approval. I really think that that's what this one speaks to more so than talking about clubs and parent groups. So I'm comfortable with the building principal on this. I think it's kind of almost skipping over the building principal, having it go to the superintendent, and then putting pressure on the superintendent to be involved in these many efforts. So I was fine with the building principal.
Yeah, I agree. I interpreted this policy to be on a smaller scale building base. So if that's the case, then I would defer to the building principal.
Well, do you think for the larger, I guess this is, all right, that's fine, forget it. No, I'm good. You guys are correct in that.
Just a simple thing, in the last red-lined item, Rockville Center. Sorry, Rockville Center, can we spell that correctly? Thank you.
Would for 7440 though, for fundraising by students?
Got it, sorry.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
For fundraising by students, would this consider like the students on the sports team raising
Well,
money?
it pushes, on the last line of that, it refers to coaches, they need the approval of the athletic director. Is that what your question was, Erica?
Right, but then is that inconsistent with what we just did in the
I'm
other
just trying to make sense
one?
of this, because if it's a school sport with a coach, then it feels like it should be the same as like the booster club. Like I understand like an elementary school doing something on a smaller scale, but if these are students who are, maybe they're having a bake sale or they're selling whatever it is that they're selling to raise money for their sports team, I feel like it should have the same.
Well, because
like
now
a
you
larger
have
weight.
students going to coach versus parent group. Where is parent group going? Parent group is going to superintendent. Students are going to coach, who's going to athletic. Again, to me, it seems appropriate because we're starting at the student level this time. That's how I read this policy.
The difference is when outside agencies like Booster Club or PTA that are their own entities are providing or doing fundraising, they do it on their own. And then gifts are supposed to be given to the district and approved by the Board of Ed, by those types of organizations. It happens all the time. Ed Foundation, we have one tonight from Ryan O'Shea Foundation. Outside organizations do their own fundraising. I think what's addressed in the policy is if you're going to use the name of our teams or use our children to do it, like some of these fundraisers have, not through Booster Club, but through the coaches, then you have to get the prior approval. And so there's some conflating here between whether we're doing fundraising as a school and a school team, or if it's coming from an outside organization in as a gift, and that has to be separated. Does that make sense, Mr.
I guess
Barnowski?
it makes sense if it matters where it's coming back to, right? So if it's sweatshirts that they decide they're going to raise money for, that's not coming back into the district, so that's not a gift, right?
Who's raising money and giving sweatshirts?
I'm saying if a team did that, for an example, we're not accepting that as a gift from
We
the
wouldn't be
district.
accepting gifts from teams.
Right.
That's our school. So that fundraising would get the approval, and that's okay. But if a booster club is giving us a gift, or the Ed Foundation is giving us a gift, or an outside foundation that has their own bylaws, their own books, their own accounts, those aren't our trust and agency accounts like the ones from 99 Pledges are. It's a separate account.
Right, but we have a policy on accepting gifts. I'm confused what the question is.
The question is that some of these things are getting conflated when you're looking at the way the two policies are written. So if it's fundraising by students, and the students are fundraising like they were online, they're not banging on doors anymore, they're banging on virtual doors with emails, and a coach is overseeing that. We have a policy where that's going through either the athletic director or the superintendent by virtue of a form now that we're going to attach to that has been approved ahead of time, and the different rules that we're putting in about why we're fundraising and what we're fundraising for. With a booster club or another outside community-based organization, I don't know, a touchdown club, however many of those we have, I don't know. But if those organizations are fundraising and giving the money to the school, it's not going through the athletic director and into our trust and agency accounts. It should be going as a gift to the district that's approved by the Board of Ed like every other outside organization.
Again, I think it matters on what it is, right? Like what would constitute a gift to the district in that example?
Anything they're doing, because our trust and agency accounts are not for outside agencies to deposit their monies in. It's for our trust and agency, right? For our teams.
Maybe Mr. Bartels or Ms.
Right,
Lalo
that's why
can clarify
I'm looking that
trust
way.
and agency versus gift.
Trust and agency, if we get a gift in, it would go into trust and agency account.
But it would go through the gift process because we have a
Correct.
gift policy.
Yes.
Right.
Would be accepted by the district as a gift and would be put into a trust and agency account.
And that's separate than if the soccer coach or the lacrosse coach raises money through some fundraiser they've gotten approved by Carol or yourself, forms are filled out, money is raised, the money goes directly into our accounts. Versus they don't have to go through any kind of extra process of a gift because they're part of our
Correct,
agency.
but they still go into the trust and yes.
Right, but it's part of our agency.
Correct.
Okay. But if an outside organization of any kind, a parent organization, and anything,
Right.
they have to come to us through the gift policy, correct?
Yes, if it's an outside group, they have to come to us to the gift policy.
Right. I don't think we've been following that.
No.
I think we need to.
Yes.
That's my point.
Right.
And Mr. Barnowski, is that correct?
I agree.
Okay. That's my point.
Please understand, in our legal review of your existing policies, our first task is to make sure that they're legal, okay? This is the way you've had it structured for many years. If you now wish to, you have discretion to combine these things. And the way it's drafted is not necessarily, we try to be respectful that this is the policies you've been under for many years and not just wholesale redo them. So I think you're right, though. I think Mr. Bartels just said as to the distinction between this policy, which I read as more of sort of a grassroots elementary school kids raising, not great sums of money for some, good purpose. That's different from, a major fundraiser from a booster club or another outside group.
But this policy, you're talking elementary, but this policy also would provide for middle and high school.
Of course. No, I just use that as an example.
Okay. Is it that last part, that all the rules of the policy of the Rockville Center School District sports teams apply to? Is that last paragraph?
The reason we added that is that the last work session I was at, a trustee suggested that it appears this applies only to extracurricular or other activities and not to sports. So we added that to make sure it also applies to sports.
So then if it's in club, is that separate then? That would go through the principal.
Right.
So anything
That's
other
different.
than athletes would go through the building principal.
Correct. I think that's the problem. We have it in there and it's like it's double written and it's written differently in both.
Martin and pass.
I think we have to leave this at stage one.
Excuse me?
I think the last paragraph just needs clarification.
Yeah, I think we have to leave it.
Yeah, leave it.
I would leave this at stage one.
Excuse me?
I would leave this at stage one.
Okay. So, but are we looking for some change or some?
To the last paragraph.
The
It
last
has to be
paragraph?
clearer. It's not clear enough.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. 3273, soliciting funds from school personnel. Again, 02 and absolutely no changes. Any questions, comments? We'll move to stage 2.
Yeah.
Done looking at the policies. Mr. Bartels, opportunity for superintendent.
Thank you. Did also want to recognize tonight Jeannie Love. We're actually going to be changing her title to Assistant Superintendent on the PAR tonight to recognize the work that she's been doing in this role since she arrived here. The title was... The title had been downgraded at the time she was hired, but I think in this short time she's shown her value and is certainly doing the work of the Assistant Superintendent role. Wanted to also acknowledge the fantastic work that some of our artists have in display out in the lobby outside the auditorium here. We have some very talented artists in the district. And I also wanted to note that Southside High School will be hosting the NISMA music competitions this weekend. So I know Mr. Zuor will be deeply involved with that.
Mrs. Czar, you want to add anything to that while you're here? No? You stayed with us this long. It's no elaboration. Okay. Thank you.
It's late.
You lost it at 10 o'clock, right?
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Opportunity for board members?
Want me to start?
If you want, we can go backwards.
I'm short and sweet. I want to congratulate our valedictorian or salutatorian, our national merit finalists, our swimmers, our divers, wrestlers, gymnasts, track and basketball team members. The best part of sitting on this board is watching all of you excel. Congratulations to Dr. Hood on defending your dissertation and this milestone in your career. Congratulations to Assistant Superintendent Love for her promotion. And I'd like to congratulate Trustee Erica Messier on her acceptance to Harvard University's Masters of Education Leadership Program. We are very lucky to have such wonderful examples of lifelong learning in action for our students. Thank you, Mr. Bartels and Ms. Latho, for the budget presentation. Thank you to all of our principals and our administrators for all the work you did tonight and for being here until 10:30 at night to support us and the community in any questions that we had. We really do appreciate it. That's all. I'm done.
Congratulations to all of our students who were celebrated for their academic achievements and student athletes that were honored here tonight. All of your parents and all of the teachers and coaches that have supported you along the way. Thank you to our district administration for putting together this proposed budget and to our amazing principals and directors for being here to discuss the ways in which we can continue to improve our programs and facilities. I'm looking forward to seeing these ideas come to fruition as we move forward together into the future. Congratulations again to Dr. Hood and Ms. Love. Additionally, I'm looking forward to attending more of our concerts, theatrical productions, spring sports athletic competitions, as well as the Parent University and Middle School Open House. Thank you to all who worked to put those events together. Have a great night.
Congratulations to Nicole, Isabel, and Benjamin on your outstanding academic achievement. We're so proud of your accomplishments and wish you much continued success. And I look forward to hearing your graduation speeches as well. To our student athletes who were honored tonight, well done. To be recognized as elite athletes, as individuals, or as teams, and scholar athletes at that is quite an honor. So whether they take the court, the track, pools, beams, or the mat, you make us very proud and you represent Southside very well. I'd like to thank and congratulate Dr. Zuar and his talented musical department staff and the phenomenal all-district concerts. I was able to attend 2 out of the 3 of them in person, and I watched the other virtually, and they were just incredible. I loved watching the progression from our elementary to middle to high school students, and all of the musicians were just fantastic, and I commend all of you on your efforts. It was wonderful. Also, I echo Mr. Bartels, if you have a minute to look at the beautiful artwork that's throughout this building, especially in our, right outside in our lobby. Our DECA students are thriving, our clubs are amazing. So again, just really proud of our students and who they are. I'd also like to congratulate our very own Dr. Sonia Hood, who successfully defended her dissertation. I know that that was a labor of love, and I'm so proud of her and excited for her that she can now move on and get to her next milestone, and I can't wait to see what that one's going to be. To Ms. Jeannie Love, thank you so much for everything you've done to date. We're so happy to have you and looking forward to seeing what you're going to do as an assistant superintendent. I've been so impressed with what you've done for us so far. Sonia and Jeannie might be 2 of our newest professionals, but they really are a perfect marriage to our veteran professionals that we have here, Mr. Bartels, Dr. Sampino, Ms. Lalo, all of our support staff, our wonderful principals who I love seeing. I wish you would come more often so we could see you and just get to talk to you and pick your brains. So much brain power in this room. It's awesome. I know you don't feel that way, but I do. So we're happy to have you. Thank you for coming. I know it was a long night. So as a board, we're going through such a tenuous process right now and having so many conversations, and we're being afforded an opportunity to get to know educational leaders and have these poignant conversations with one another. But it's a really nice moment of reflection to talk as a board with individuals about what we're proud of in our district and get to share that. And that was such a great experience to have, and it kind of just made me want to share the thing for me that I did share in that process. But for me, it's always been about the people in this district, and that really includes everyone, the leadership, the teachers, the staff, but especially the students. Who our students are and who they're becoming is so impressive. The scope of what they know and what they do is inspiring and incredible. Our students are directly impacted by their amazing teachers, their trusted adults, who take the roles of coaches, mentors, social workers, club leaders, guidance counselors, just to name a few. There's so many. We've overcome and climbed many large mountains over the last few years, but I do believe that we will come out stronger, and our town has risen to the challenge. So I always say onwards and upwards. We're moving forward. That's the only way we can go, and we will never forget how we got here, but we just keep moving forward. So I'm really proud of what we do here and who we have, and just wanted to kind of round that out with a positive end to my comments. Thank you.
I'd like to begin by congratulating our valedictorian, Nicole Gabriel, and our salutatorian, Isabel Liu. What an achievement. I commend you for your dedication to your academics over the past 5 years, and I'm looking so forward to hearing about all of the excellence that is to come for you both. I would also like to congratulate our National Merit finalists. You make our whole community so proud. Congratulations to our student athletes and their coaches. Being able to manage the rigor of your classwork with the demands of highly competitive sport is difficult. Earning all county honors on top of that is just amazing. Congratulations to Dr. Sonia Hood on completing your doctoral dissertation. I'm very excited for you and for our district. I think most would agree that the one trait we hope to instill in our students is the love of learning and to be lifelong learners. Dr. Hood, your commitment to your practice is so commendable, and you truly serve as a role model for all of our children. Congratulations to Mrs. Love. This title is beyond deserved. You have accomplished so much in such a short amount of time that will truly benefit all the students of the Rockville Center School District. I'd just like to conclude by thanking Mr. Bartels and Mrs. Lalo for your work on the budget, as well as Mr. Scalisi and all of our building principals and administration for their thoughtful and reflective input into our capital improvements and programming. I'm very happy that we're not only maintaining all existing programs, but seriously investigating adding new initiatives such as universal pre-K, as well as adding to our athletic offerings. We should always strive to give students of this district the absolute best. Thank you all for all of your hard work.
Thank you. I'd just like to, many thanks. What happened here tonight with our students, they are the product of many years of the teachers in our school district, the coaches in our school district, and it's a great thing to see how they have come into the district in kindergarten and gone through, and in high school they are at a great level. We all want that with all our kids. We all need that for all our children. And that's the only reason we question the things we question, is to make it better for the next generation of kids. We don't want to leave anybody behind. And if we can keep achieving the great things that we do, that's what we're all about. That's all I want to say. Thank you for everybody. Congratulations to everybody. And okay, we'll move on to opportunity for visitors.
Karen Parker, 37 Southern Avenue. Before you start my time, please, I just wanted to say quickly, I feel like it was yesterday, but when we were talking about the need for data and surveys, I'm more than happy. I would love to share the experience. I have 2 graduates of college that also came through here and currently a 10th grader, but I always say that I'd love to be a part of discussion, but I'm not always included, so include me, please. Okay, now I'm starting. About fundraising and teams fundraising, Booster Club fundraising, all of it. Before any discussion began tonight, we really, I think we should have gained some clarity. The policy under current review, one of them at least, is called Booster Clubs and Community-Based Clubs. However, most of the discussion has been about team fundraising. So I think a distinction needs to be made. The Booster Club here at Southside fundraises almost solely for scholarships. And although individual team fundraising is important, Booster Club fundraising has nothing at all to do with individual team fundraising. I also find it curious that much of the additions to the policy have been taken almost verbatim from a Garden City policy titled Relationship with Booster Organizations. What they call booster organizations in Garden City are in essence parent groups for each team, but not the same as our Booster Club. So I'm wondering, what is the policy really speaking to? The Booster Club at Southside, team fundraising, or a new system like Garden City, where each team has their own parent organization in charge of fundraising for that team? I'd love to have that question answered after I'm finished. So whatever the case, what everyone can agree on is that fundraising should have the following parameters. Fundraising should be voluntary. It should be anonymous. There should be either no goal or a reasonable goal. And expenditures should be clearly accounted for. And although never specifically written down, these guidelines have certainly been followed by teams that have fundraised in the past. And so beside these guidelines, I'm also wondering what other issues the board feels need to be addressed in the rewriting of this policy that aren't covered within those parameters. And finally, I have to mention the same thing that I have written in every letter and spoken about every time I have been at this microphone. At the root of the problem is a lack of proper communication and dialogue. If I'm not mistaken, this policy review was begun after a letter was written to the board concerning the website 99 Pledges. On its face, that seemed like a really great way for foolproof and hands-off fundraising. However, it did have issues. One of them was a lack of anonymity and an arbitrary goal that was set by the website. So when this complaint was received, had it been properly investigated and answered to the person who posed the question, it could have been addressed and resolved. But to my knowledge, no board member asked any parents or coaches who could have offered information. And now when it comes to this policy, I see you conflating several different ideas. I assume stemming from a lack of understanding. But again, I don't see you asking any questions to gain clarity or facts. I'm the Booster Club president, and no board member has asked me any questions about how Booster Club fundraising works or how it differs from team fundraising. We also had an effective vehicle for discussion last year called the Athletic Advisory Committee, which this board inexplicably dissolved. Before something becomes an accusation, it should be a discussion. In this case, the accusations and insinuations certainly make me feel I am not trusted. And I can't imagine our coaches, many of whom are also our trusted teachers, feel very supported. This type of toxic culture only serves to divide and decrease morale. You spoke about it tonight yourselves, collaboration. The proposed increase in the athletic department budget is a wonderful step in the right direction, and I have no doubt it will be put to good use. However, I also want to stress that even with an increased budget, team fundraising will still be necessary. Every penny of team fundraising is essential and goes directly to benefit the kids. So I hope we can come to a clear explanation of what exactly this policy is meant to oversee, and I hope that we can all continue to support our athletes without prohibiting them from doing essential fundraising. I also hope the Booster Club is not hindered in any way in our fundraising efforts and the amazing scholarships we're able to give. And I sincerely hope we can get back to what really matters, our students, and ensuring they receive every aspect of a well-rounded education.
Thank you.
Just waiting for the questions.
The policy, Mr. Barnowski, who came up with the changes to the policy?
No, not who came up with the changes. What does it address specifically?
Well, you indicated that the policy looks like something that came from some Garden City handbook. Your insinuation, I assume by that, is that
No, it's not an insinuation. If you look up the Garden City policy, there's word for word, so I'm saying, is it about a system like Garden City has? Or is it about our Booster Club?
I believe your insinuation was a reference to Garden City as if
No,
Ms. Messier had something to do with it.
No, that's not what I'm asking at all. I'm asking you, what is the policy about?
All right, the attorneys came up with the changes for the policy, so we can ask the
That's
attorneys
not what
if
I'm-
Mr. Barnowski knows the answer to that.
I know nothing about the Garden City policy.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking,
understand.
their policy is about parent clubs for each team. Is that what this policy is about?
I am totally...
Or is it about our Booster Club?
My legal review of your policy book was to clarify, correct anything that was not necessarily illegal, but not in accordance with commissioners' regulations, etc. And I took, as I said earlier, your existing policies, which I thought had been structured in a certain way for a good reason, and tried to improve them. I do not know anything about the structure of Garden City or even here in Rockville Center in terms of, these are standard, what we refer to are templates put out by New York State School Boards Association, other districts, etc., when we're looking for models. But we do not represent, nor do I know anything about Garden City.
Okay, so it's about our Booster Club.
We've had no conversation as a board about restructuring any of the way that fundraising is done by either the Booster Club or student groups. I think our conversation has been very pointed at just making sure that there's a universal way in which we're doing it, or doing fundraising, that just basically that it's following policy. But we've had no conversation to the contrary about any sort of parent groups. I don't even know where in here, I'm trying to read it to see where it says that, but we're not trying to tell you how to do the amazing job that you do.
So Booster Club doesn't fall under the other regulations that we would have to submit every year exactly what the fundraising is for?
That's in general, that's the law. when you fundraise for money, well, not from an outside group?
It just seems very confused.
We already had that policy in place.
No, there's all the changes.
No, the policy was in place that the gifts should be given from outside organizations to this board. That was already in place.
I just feel like a lot is being conflated here. It seems confusing to me. I'm just asking for clarity.
Again, that is the structure that you had. We tried to make it as consistent as we could and looked at other examples, and we did point out certain things from our experience in other districts and referring to school boards and commissioners' guidance. And I think I mentioned a few of those suggestions when asked this evening.
Okay, so in addition to voluntary, anonymous, all those parameters, what are the other issues that needed to be addressed?
We've addressed them in the policy.
What were they?
You were here. We just went through the policy.
What were the parameters in addition to those that needed to be addressed?
The policy speaks for itself.
It's making fundraising transparent and legal. That's as simple as the words on the page. I don't understand what you're asking, Mrs. Parker.
I'm asking you what were the issues that led you to need to rewrite it?
The issues were that fundraising needs to be, everybody who raises money needs to submit it to the district so the district knows what's coming into the district and how it's going to be dispersed.
So team fundraising, like you were, I feel like Tara was just trying to gain a little clarity. Team fundraising, if they're going to raise money for sweatshirts with their names on them, it has to come through the district. Then it's the districts, and the kids can't take those home.
That's not what was said.
No, I think that policy we were referring to for that, if the coach...
That's a different policy.
Right, the student athletes would get the approval for the athletic director.
Okay. All right. Still seems a little complicated to me and conflated, and I wish that all of us were more involved in this conversation to help you guys have clarity.
We just were, though. I mean, and this is your opportunity. And next week, it's staying at stage one, so we will discuss it at the next meeting.
My opportunity.
We're going to look at the form.
Okay.
We created the Athletic Advisory Committee based off of a policy we had to look at 2 years ago. And the purpose of the committee was to have people at the table to talk and make recommendations to the board, and then the board was responsible for taking action on policy change. So what Mrs. Parker is trying to say is that absent that opportunity, policies being created and discussed without that piece, and I believe the booster community and leadership and athletics and the coaches are feeling cut out. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
This is a public meeting, and every stage of the policy creation for this is open to the entire public. When there was a committee to form that policy that you're referring to, it was a very narrowly formed committee with only a few people on it. This is an open public meeting.
Those policies went through more phases in public, because I was on the board then, so I can speak to the truth about that.
Every phase
While we had private committee meetings to have discussion to help formulate good language on policy, the required 3 stages that are in our policy on policy were probably quadrupled in the amount of times that that topic came up on an agenda in public with public comment. So I want to be factual here. It did not happen in private. It did not skip stages. It did not get approved by this board. It went through more stages than it ever needed to on top of committee discussion. That's the honest truth. And I know other people know the truth.
Everyone in this room can comment. The policy is being reviewed by our attorney, who's supposed to be reviewing the policy, and it's open to the public. Anyone at home can comment, they can write in, they can come to the next meeting, they can speak. There's nothing but transparency here.
But in
being
good
done
faith,
completely and openly in public for everybody.
But in good faith, shouldn't you be seeking information?
We are.
From people who might have more of an experience than you. And I don't think just standing here at the mic for 3 minutes is the same thing as a dialogue.
The dialogue is ongoing. Anyone can write a letter. We received letters with regards to that
Never gotten a
policy.
response from a letter, ever.
Mrs. Parker, I've read what you've written the board, and it's usually just a comment. I've read the last
written
three.
specific questions.
Mrs. Parker, I've read them, and it's a comment, not really a question.
I can show you.
I've read them.
I can show
Oh,
you the
okay.
questions.
All right, that's,
I'll send it again tomorrow.
that'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, principals.
Jamie Madden, 385 Morris. I have a bunch of great stuff I was going to say about fundraising, but given the time, I'm going to skip over that. But our kids are doing amazing things in all of our schools through their fundraising efforts. I, like Karen, was also surprised that the policy was being what I see is more restrictive in its scope. So recently there were concerns about having too high of a fundraising goal per student, as we talked about tonight. Of course, no student should ever feel pressure when fundraising. So making goals that are reasonable and keeping what each student has raised confidential seems like a no-brainer, right? And a very, very simple fix. That doesn't require a lawyer. This past week, I spoke with athletic directors, coaches, and parents in 4 neighboring districts about their fundraising efforts. I was shocked. Other districts are funding things like sending the entire football team to a 2-week summer camp, or tournaments outside of the league schedule that have a hefty price tag to attend and require the team to stay in hotels, or additional clinics on the weekends. These extra tournaments and camps lead to greater team bonding, more skill training, and a more competitive team. In my research into what other districts are doing, all I kept thinking is we need to be doing more. Oh my goodness. And we need to find ways to give these amazing opportunities to our students, most certainly not to restrict or decrease what is going on at Southside. We need to have a level of trust in our parents and our teachers and our coaches, and the board has to realize that these fundraising efforts are solely to enhance the experience of our students. I learned that many other districts have parent organizations that raise money through fundraisers and donations. This was actually a common theme with the districts that I spoke with, and they contribute what is needed for these extra expenses. The school is not involved except to accept gifts from these organizations to support the student athletes. One of these districts being Garden City, which has these friends of organizations for each team. I actually spoke with a bunch of different coaches there, and they were saying how positive these organizations have been for their teams and how much opportunity they allow for their student athletes. I believe our teams at Southside would really benefit from moving towards this model, and I think we have a lot to learn, with one of our board members being a coach there as well. We should be looking for the best way to support all of our clubs, teams, and student organizations, to trust our faculty and our parents to do so, and make quick fixes when problems arise, and to move on to policies and topics that will improve education in our schools. So the 3 questions I have for you tonight are, the first one, how many letters did you receive complaining about fundraising?
I'm going to answer, if I receive 1, I want to look into it something.
I'm just curious,
I don't have a count, but like I say, if it was 1, that's enough for me to say. If the concerned parent reaches out to the board and says, I'm concerned about this, it deserves the board to look into it.
Okay,
So-
would you get back to me with a number about how many?
There's no need to. I'm going to tell you if it was 1 parent. then
I
would-
understand
then
if
would
it's
look at it.
1, and I love to hear that you
So
want to
it
look
is- so
into it, but
I'll-
I'd like to know how many. I think that's a
There
fair
was at
question.
least 1 for football, 1 for baseball, or 2 for baseball, 1 for boys soccer. I think there were 5. There's 3 tonight, and there were several others. And people have also spoken to us about these particular
5 total.
fundraisers that we addressed, the issue of the
Right,
$900.
and we all see those as being ridiculous.
So that's why we spoke about them tonight, because they were ridiculous. So here
Right.
they are.
Right, but there's another way to easily fix that problem. The second question, in Garden City, these parent organizations that I spoke with are 501(c)(3)s and gift money for certain things like tournaments and travel and camps to the school. So how are they doing that?
They're an outside organization with their own status, their own accounts, their own fundraising. If they're going to use the team name or the children to fundraise, I'm sure there's policies like we have here, because those come from New York State rules about using children to fundraise. That's not us.
Nobody's looking to
They do that, and then those organizations like Friends of Lacrosse offer a gift to the district for whatever it is they want to give, and the boards approve them.
And that would work here for our teams, correct?
Yeah, they don't have to, we don't, for us to have a fundraiser in-house or have a fundraiser that is sponsored by the district, it has to be specific. If an outside group wants to raise money, however, they want to raise money and not disclaim to the people that are giving, they're not supposed to, but that's their responsibility. So the Touchdown Club can gift the district $20,000 for X, Y, and they can determine for X, Y, and Z what it's for. The board would approve it, then it's all through the proper channels.
Excellent.
So those parents, if they choose to give to that outside organization, that's not our responsibility to make sure that it's transparent for the parent to know.
Right, as one of the coaches said, it kind of takes the liability off of the school. For the fundraisers that are in-house, let's say we're selling t-shirts, right? If I buy 200 t-shirts and I sell 50, I don't know going in, am I going to sell 50 or am I going to sell all 200? So what if I say I'm selling these t-shirts and I want to buy backpacks, but then I end up with $200 extra? What do we do in that case?
Legality?
It depends on who you are. Who are you that's selling t-shirts? Are you?
As a team fundraiser, we're selling t-shirts, a parent-organized fundraiser from the school, approved by the athletic director.
I suppose.
Robert's off too.
I suppose you could go back to the athletic director and explain that the original purpose was not possible and get an amended approval.
Excellent. Thank you.
Pauline Gibney, 1327 North Long Beach Road. Just a quick question of fundraising. I just wanted to go back to the earlier conversation when we were talking about the budget and data collection. I've been coming to board meetings on the budget for years, and there was definitely a lot of conversation in 2017 and 2018 when there were changes to curriculum and FLES and so on, that there would be data collected and there would be transparency when changes were made. And I was just wondering, because it was certainly a point, most especially in 2018, when Superintendent Johnson was still here, there were discussions about gathering data, including how much individuals or families pay for tutoring services to help students keep up with the rigors of middle school and high school. And when we were talking about data collection, I know we do have data from 2018, and given that there's been COVID slide, and we've seen the struggles our students have, if there is an effort being made to get information from families on how much tutoring is taking place outside of school. Because we're certainly a school district where a lot of families can afford the tutoring. Some families can't, but we certainly sit here bragging about, the kids are keeping up and the kids are graduating and so on, but we also have to acknowledge not only are we giving them opportunities in the classroom, but schools or families are taking on the burden of having to get tutoring services to help the students along the way. And I'm just wondering, because we're sitting here saying we speak to our teachers and we are evaluating and so on, but I'm not sure there was any mention of reaching out to families and hearing from them about how much more tutoring it takes due to COVID slide and due to the rigors of the curriculum in the middle school and the high school to help these students achieve what they're achieving. Because a teacher doesn't necessarily know what the families are doing to help their students pass earth science. You don't know how stressful it is on the family to get their student to pass algebra. So when you're looking at the information, I was just wondering if you would consider, again, reaching out to families for that feedback.
Hello, is this on? Okay. I absolutely will. I just want to, I hear a lot about 2017, 2018. I definitely was here in the district. However, I was not in this seat. So there might have been directives or things said, but they might not have been directives to me. So I just want, I do feel badly when people say, well, this happened then. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't particularly at that meeting or was directed by that person to do something. Does that make sense? But tonight,
it definitely does.
Yeah, no, but
still,
tonight I'm directed.
If the commitment's made by an administrator in the district, it doesn't matter who the next person is, in the seat. There's still an obligation to provide that information.
Understood,
to the public.
and I'm just being honest. I don't recall a tutoring survey, but I remember being sent 2 assistant superintendents ago. I'd have to look and see if it was sent. It wasn't sent by Dr. Pellettieri's office, I don't believe, but I'll double check. I'll check in if it was Dr. Leahy's office. I have to look into that.
I know assurances were made that they would send a survey.
Yeah, that's what I'm being honest with you.
My kids were still in the
I'm being honest with you. I don't know if it was given or not given, or if it was given just to the upper grades. I will look into that to see if that was actually distributed. And if not, then when we're developing the survey that Mrs. Messier asked that we, to create, we could put something, we'll try to create something that talks about the experience that includes that. And that takes time. Developing a survey, you could ask Dr. Hood because she just did her doctoral research. It does take a little bit of time to make it that it's clear and that you can get good results from it. It's not like something, you're just gonna be send out. We want to be thoughtful. We will get it done. I will send it to the Board of Education in case we're missing something. I do want to work collaboratively because I think that's so important. But I do feel like when I hear things about that, were discussed, 4 years ago at a meeting or 3 years ago, or even 2 years before I was in this seat, it's just a different, and I don't have Dr. Pelletieri to look to, I don't have Dr. Johnson to go to, and Dr. Leahy, people who are here, it just becomes very difficult. And I'm not blaming anybody, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying I have to do some digging to see where it was left off in the process.
And I think if you go back to those conversations, a lot of those conversations were had because parents were feeling like in the Accelerated for All program,
No, I understand.
Children, our students are having a hard time keeping up with the rigor of those programs. And most especially the kids in special ed, if they don't have a vehicle for helping them along, middle school and in a high school. And obviously, if parents have to go outside of the district to get help just to keep our students passing, that's a reflection on what's going on.
Mrs. Messier asked for that, and we will ask for that in the survey. It's a great point, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? Tom Aiello, 119 Brower Avenue. I just had a question about the fundraising, about where the funds could be allocated to. I've been a coach for 27 years, 2 sports, and fundraising is critical. It's just critical for the kids. It really, absolutely critical for the kids, that their experience playing is going to be so much better when we have, fundraising. One of the big things is having enough coaches, and I know there was some good discussion today about adding coaches, and I think that's great. But in my situation and in some other situations, 1 extra is not enough. Like, 4, having 4. I mean, some of the teams I think that Garden City and we compete against, and we compete against some pretty good programs. They all have 3 to 4 assistants. They put a lot of funds into it. I think, talking about using fundraising money for volunteer coaches, I just want to know if that is, I know it was discussed, like maybe it's not a great idea, but if we don't have the funds to pay all of it, you can get some really good people helping all of our kids. I mean, it's really, really important. So I just wanted to know if, going forward, is that going to be something that can be used, like if using that money to get good people to help our kids? And listen, at the end of the day, it's, the coaches that do it right, and most of I would say Southside, the coaches do it right. They're barely making minimum wage of all the stuff they're doing. So they just need extra help. And I just want to know if fundraising, if part of it, if it goes to the proper channels, like we're talking, and I agree 100% with that, are they going to be allowed to be used to hire good people or have volunteers, good people, who have to go through a lot of channels to actually become a volunteer? It's not like somebody comes off the street. There is a lot of money involved. I've had in my program kids, former players come back and do it, and they're phenomenal with our kids. And they're great people out there. So I just want to know, going forward, is that something, you guys would look at, or if it's at a future discussion, because it is an important situation, to have not just maybe 1 extra assistant, but a couple to man everything. And especially like the football program, with the 58 and 2, there's a lot of coaching, there's a lot of things you got to teach these kids, and a lot of oversight, in my opinion, in that sport. And that's my question.
We as a board haven't discussed that, and it would have to go through, the athletic director and the superintendent before it came to us as a recommendation. So I think
there's 2 different issues. It's whatever you need for coaching, and my husband works for the NFL. I get football needs a lot of different coaches. And some sports may need more support because of the nature of the sport and how you coach it. That's one issue, and what we can provide. But I don't know that legally, and I defer to our attorney, that you can raise funds to pay volunteer coaches and it doesn't go through the district. We'd have to ask him. So there's 2 issues. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying it's not necessary to have more coaches for certain sports. That should go through our athletic director and then to the board and budgetary. But I don't know that you can pay volunteer coaches through parent fundraising. That would have to be addressed by the business person, the attorney. I don't know the answer to that.
Would he be able to answer, or he doesn't know? I'm sorry.
It's really a matter of your policy, and also I think, and I'll defer to the superintendent as to the treatment of it by the controller and the auditor, and there's issues of accounting for it, and that everything's properly done. I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's you'd have to look at your policy and decide what you wish to do.
I think it's more to, like, if you have a PAR and you put someone on as an employee, I don't know how you pay them with funds that don't come from the district. That's the question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't run a school district, but that's the point that needs to be addressed by someone in the know.
Okay.
We will we'll bring it up with all of us, and Carol Zetto and the superintendent, and we'll address it or try and bring it up at the next meeting, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frank Van Zant. I live in Huntington. I'm the president of the Rockville Center Teachers Association. And there is a tradition of success in Rockville Center. It's demonstrated year after year. We saw the students tonight, and we teachers love that success. And in that light, I would like to speak about a Rockville Center institutional cornerstone, an icon who passed away recently, Russ Reed. When I started in 1986, Russ was like a work father to many of us. Always helpful, always funny, always sharing his passion for teaching and coaching. So many lessons I learned when I was privileged to team teach with him, or in the gym, the coaching tips I got. One of the thoughts of my early teaching career from Russ: kids first, kids first. What will work to catch their attention, to hook them? Russ started teaching in 1970. 1970. He spent 50 years in service to the students of this district. His students, his athletes, his play production groups, amazing. Please know that his widow, Maureen Reed, known to the world as Mo, has started the Russ Reed Memorial Scholarship, and there's already some $35,000 there. The RVCTA will be donating $500, and many individual teachers will be donating beyond that, on top of that, with Southside in mind, and they'll be giving as well. If you're interested, please go to GoFundMe and look for the Russ Reed Memorial Scholarship. That's an investment in Southside kids. Russ's passion is shared and carried forward by the teachers who taught and coached beside him. In the past 2 years, our teachers and our students have shown that level of passion, such great resilience. In all our buildings, we have risen together above the buffeting impact of pandemic adjustments on top of pandemic adjustments. And we've all of us, come out working and coping and adjusting and adapting, all of us. We teachers share a common goal with the parents of the community. We believe in working with our students to make them smarter, better, more confident, more prepared to meet the world. And as we work toward June and all of those celebrations, we know that too, we will be soon enough looking to September and that fresh crop. As we love teaching, we love to cheer with our hearts and souls for the students who come before us. But we teachers are not naive about our professional regard. I have reported to you, in fact, that we have felt attacked and fearful because of ill-advised board decisions. No matter the optics you place around it, a failed attempt at an injustice becomes, in its failure, a justice for us. A continued attack in the form of mandated isolation attempts to create the illusion of wrongdoing, but we teachers see it for what it is. And your failure is remembered in the court of our injured feelings. However, we want the community to know, no matter what slings and arrows, we will always be there for our students, and we honor the hard work that they do and the successes that they earn. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mrs. Berger, you coming up? You said you were.
Karen Burgee, 15 Hendricks Avenue, and I was debating whether I was coming back up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I called you out. You didn't want to.
No, it's okay, because it is a discussion I want to have. I don't want to have a discussion. I just want to say something and put it on record that it needs to be discussed further. And Ms. McGinn had left, so I kind of felt like it didn't need to be discussed tonight.
Sorry, it's past your
but
bedtime.
It's past my bedtime. What I wanted to say is the parents of the 8th grade National Junior Honor Society students were recently emailed an announcement on a reward trip to Philadelphia. I wanted to once again voice my concern that this is an inappropriate trip reward and it needs to be reconsidered. The scale of this reward is excessive and it excludes many students who are intellectually different. These students work extremely hard, but again, have intellectual differences. We here in Rockville Center put all of our students on the same playing field, and we ask them every day to play the same game. However, they do not have the same abilities. I understand this trip is tradition in Rockville Center, but in 2022, we really need to know better, and we must reevaluate and adjust accordingly. I'm not asking that we eliminate a reward for the National Junior Honor Society. It's a great accomplishment. I'm asking that we adjust the size of the reward. Excluding our cognitively disabled students from the largest scale trip that Southside Middle School has to offer is not teaching our MYP learners the MYP values. And I would also like to thank Ms. McGinn for adding the new 8th grade New York City boat trip that is all inclusive of all 8th graders. It makes me so happy. It's going to be a wonderful experience for all that choose to go. That's the true spirit of Rockville Center. And I would just like some consideration and possibly a discussion on the possibility of adjusting the scale of this trip. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burgee. Anybody else? All right. We will move on. Mr. Bartels, we have a gift.
Yes.
Gift of $500 towards sources of strength training material for the middle school.
Yes, Superintendent recommends acceptance of the gift from Sources of Strength.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
So
The
moved.
gift.
Any questions?
No.
Do we typically approve it, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John, I thought that we have a policy that if somebody's involved in the organization, they have to abstain.
If something, excuse me?
I thought that if somebody was involved in an organization that was presenting a
Okay,
gift to
you're
the
right.
district,
You are right.
that they had to abstain.
I abstain.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So for the rest of us, is there anyone
there-
who has an objection to the acceptance of the gift?
No.
We all approve? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
So approved. Good.
Having a motion to accept the minutes as written in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve the financial reports as listed in the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve receipts of financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any questions? I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve actions, board actions 1 through, are they usually numbered? 1 through 5. Oh, 1 through, let's do 1 through 5 as written in the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve items for action 6, a revised personnel action report?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the late hour.
It's 11:30.
It is 11:30.